Hey guys, tonight we're slipping quietly into the shadows of a medieval village, right as the evening fog curls around low stone walls and the last embers of the fire crackle beneath a crooked chimney. The cat at your feet stretches and purrs, chasing a flicker of warmth with the tip of her tail, and outside someone's goat is bleating in protest at being locked up for the night. In this little corner of the world, you might think a pet is just a pet, a comforting presence, something soft to stroke as you count the days between harvests. But tonight you'll find out that even a purring kitten isn't safe from the wild swings of fortune, fear and fate that ruled the medieval world. As the stories pile up, you might realise that, in this place, you probably won't survive this journey with all your furry friends intact, or maybe even yourself. So before we go any further, if this quiet space makes you feel even a little less alone, you can like the video and subscribe, but only if it feels right to your heart. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Are you lying awake in a quiet room at 2 a.m? Or maybe starting your day in a rainy city, eyes still heavy? Drop your time and place in the comments. Let's remind each other we're not alone out here. Now dim the lights, let your shoulders relax, and let's begin tonight's slow, strange journey. Together, here on Timeless Sleep. You cradle the kitten by the hearth, feeling her heartbeat vibrate in your palm. Her fur is a patchwork of soot and cream, ears sharp as crescent moons. She's not the only animal in the house, of course. The rooster stirs on his perch, eyes wide and suspicious even in the dark, while a couple of mice dart beneath the rushes, bold as thieves in a city square. You can't help but think of this cottage as a living, breathing ark, one that creaks and shifts with every paw print, every mule, every snuffle. Pets in your world are a luxury and a liability. Sure, you love this kitten, but she isn't just here for cuddles. She's meant to keep the mice out of your grain sacks, which are thinner than your patience by the end of the winter. You hope she's good at her job because if she isn't, the consequences aren't limited to lost bread. Sometimes, a failed mouser gets replaced by one with sharper claws. Survival here is a balancing act and sentiment is a dangerous habit. Everywhere you go, you notice how animals slip between roles. One moment a companion, the next a tool. That piglet outside, the one your neighbour's daughter carries around like a baby brother. He's got a date with the butcher as soon as he's fattened up. The dog that barks at strangers during the day is chained up at night, not for his own safety, but so no one steals him for a late-night stew. Your kitten might be the apple of your eye tonight, but tomorrow, if someone whispers that she's brought a bad luck shadow into your home, the village priest might insist she be cast out, or worse. Still, it's not all doom and gloom. There are moments in the medieval year when pets are cherished for their own sake. During winter's deepest cold, you pull the cat under your woolen blanket, feeling the press of her body like a hot coal against your shins. It's a comfort older than words. Maybe she's the only one you talk to about the worries you'd never voice to your family. The worry that this year's barley will fail, or that the priest's sermons about devils and demons will one day land on your doorstep. You tell yourself you'll always keep her safe. But superstition hangs in the air like a wet sheet. There are stories, always stories, about the boy who let a black cat cross his path and caught fever the next day, or the woman whose favourite dog barked at a shadow in the moonlight and vanished by morning. No one admits they believe these tales, but you see how your mother crosses herself when the cat jumps onto the table, how the neighbours whisper if an animal acts out of sorts. In a world where the unknown can end your season, your village or your life, you cling to any explanation, however strange, for what goes wrong. The fire pops and the kitten startles, claws digging into your sleeve. You laugh, softly, but you also remember that not every village pet is lucky enough to be coddled by the hearth. Some are never truly tame. Your cousin down the road tried to keep a wild crow, convinced it would bring good fortune. It pecked holes in the roof, shrieked at night, and finally disappeared, leaving only a trail of black feathers and suspicion. People muttered about omens, and for weeks, no one would let their children near the house. You shiver, imagining how close your kitten could come to sharing that fate. Even here, where she's warm and well fed, She's never more than one step away from being turned out. You think of the other animals who drift through your days, stray dogs scavenging by the river, rabbits trapped and raised for a child's plaything, only to become a feast when the hunger bites hardest. The hardest part is that affection isn't enough. You might love your kitten fiercely, but everyone knows love can be as fragile as a spider's web. If the winds turn, if someone decides your pet is a harbinger of misfortune or the source of some village ailment, you're expected to prove your loyalty to the community, not to your animal companion. Some nights, you lie awake, listening to the soft purr by your side, and wonder if tomorrow will be the day she's taken from you. By superstition, by hunger, by plain old bad luck. The sense of unease grows each time the cat arches her back at shadows or yowls at the door when no one's there. Is she protecting you or inviting danger? You can't help but recall what the village priest said at last week's sermon. The devil walks among us, and sometimes he wears the fur of a friend. The congregation nodded solemnly, but you saw how their eyes darted to the handful of animals curled beneath benches, as if weighing which might be more than meets the eye. You resolve to keep your pet safe, but the boundaries are thin. There are no guarantees, not in this world. Tonight, you hold her a little tighter, her small body rising and falling with your breath, knowing that even here, even now, pets live at the whim of human fear, hope, and imagination. You drift, just for a moment, into a gentler memory. The village festival last spring, when children crowned the dogs with flower garlands and set the kittens atop the maypole. Laughter filled the air, and for a few hours it seemed like nothing could harm these creatures. Yet as the sun set and the fires burned down, you saw one old dog limping behind the alehouse, shooed away by men too drunk to notice his gentle eyes. It's hard not to wonder if things will ever be different. Historians still argue whether medieval people really loved their pets, or whether they simply tolerated them for practical reasons. You suspect the truth is somewhere in between, tangled in the rushes with the mice, buried in the ashes with the bones of 1,000 nameless animals who lived and died by the fireside. Still, as you tuck your kitten in beside you, your heart insists that she is more than a tool or an omen. She is your companion, your secret keeper, your patch of living warmth against a cold and unpredictable world. Tomorrow the tides might turn, but tonight you have her purr, your breath, and the soft pulse of hope that maybe, just maybe, you can protect each other from the wild, weird fate that waits outside the door. The night stretches on, the embers glow low, and the kitten curls herself into a perfect spiral. Your eyes drift closed, but your hand never leaves her back. Even as sleep pulls you under, you feel the weight of history pressing close, the knowledge that every comfort in this world must be defended, cherished, and sometimes mourned. You wake to the gentle thumping of padded feet and the distant peal of bells. Church bells, yes, but another sound too. The sharp, high-pitched yapping of a dog that doesn't belong to your humble cottage. For a moment, you're not sure if you're dreaming. Then you remember, today you're visiting the manor, where the noblewoman's lapdog wears a velvet ribbon that likely costs more than your entire year's rent. You tug on your rough woolen tunic and step out, the morning sun already struggling through a film of mist. The world outside the village is different. Stone walls laced with ivy, gates that groan on their hinges, servants bustling with baskets of bread and pitchers of watered wine. It's a curious thing being a guest here, but your mother says you're old enough to start learning how the other half lives, even if you'll never quite fit in. You walk up the path, heart beating fast. At the top of the steps, there she is, Lady Margaret, her gown trailing behind her like a spilled ink stain, her pale hands folded around a bundle of wriggling fur. Her lapdog, small, white, and trembling with self-importance, peeks from the folds of her sleeves, eyes bright and wary. You've seen dogs before, of course. Every farm has one or two, mostly for herding sheep, scaring off strangers, or warning of danger, but those are big, muddy creatures, more nose than tail, with paws that churn up half the countryside after every rain. Lady Margaret's dog is a different creature entirely. It weighs less than a loaf of bread and smells impossibly of rosewater and lavender. Its nails are buffed and painted, a tiny bell tied to its collar. Lady Margaret coos at her pet, voice softer than you've ever heard. "There's my little Lily. My precious girl, did you miss Mama?" She tickles the dog's chin, and it yips, a sound so sharp you'd swear it could shatter glass. You suppress a grin, thinking how the shepherd's dog at home would roll in cow dung just to spite anyone who tried to primp him up. But here, dogs are status. Lady Margaret isn't the only one. Across the great hall, you see the steward's wife with a pair of spaniels tucked under her arms, and the young squire attempting to keep his wolfhound from knocking over a display of pewter goblets. The noblemen parade their greyhounds in the courtyard, leashes studded with bronze and silver, collars engraved with family crests. Some of these animals are more ornament than guardian, a living, breathing accessory meant to show the world just how refined their owners truly are. You're ushered inside, the cool flagstones echoing with the click of tiny claws. The dog sits primly at Lady Margaret's feet as she sips her morning broth, never leaving her side. Servants come and go, but only one is permitted to approach Lily. He brings her a platter, tiny scraps of roast chicken, crusts of cheese, even a honeyed date, all presented on a dish finer than anything you'll ever eat from. It seems impossible, this world, but as you watch, you start to see the cracks in the pretty picture. The lapdog may wear velvet, but she's trembling, nervous at every sudden movement. When a child drops a jug, Lily bolts behind the chair, ears pinned flat. Later, you see the maid brushing her fur so vigorously that the poor animal squeals, only to be shushed. Don't want Madam to see your knots, do we? The dog's every move is scrutinised. If she soils the carpet, the housekeeper fumes for hours. If she yips too loudly at supper, she's shooed away from the fire. You realise that the lapdog is as much a prisoner of her luxury as you are of your poverty. She cannot run wild or choose her friends. Her world is defined by the whims of those above her, and as you know all too well, that's rarely a world of pure kindness. Lady Margaret shows off Lily's tricks, clapping with delight as the dog dances on her hind legs. Guests laugh, and for a moment you envy the pet's life. A warm bed, fancy food, gentle caresses. But then Lady Margaret sighs. She refuses to eat her venison. Last night she turned up her nose at the best cuts. The cook says she's spoiled, but I think she's just sensitive, like me. You wonder if that's really what's going on. You remember stories you've overheard of lapdogs fattened and dressed like children, force-fed sweetmeats, bathed in perfumes. Sometimes they sicken from their pampering. You once heard the Reeve grumble that Lady Margaret had a litter of puppies drowned because their coats weren't the right colour, or their snouts too long for fashion. The realities of noble breeding can be as cruel as they are precise. It's an open secret. Noble dogs are selectively bred to chase some vision of perfection. The right ear shape, the proper tail, the quietest bark. A hound that barks too loudly, or a terrier that runs off with a shoe might be beaten, sent away, or worse. The standards shift with every season. Today, everyone wants a white lapdog, but last year, black spaniels were all the rage, said to ward off evil spirits. You follow Lady Margaret outside, Lily trotting at her heels. In the garden, the dog is placed on a velvet cushion in the sun. She sniffs a bee, sneezes, and looks plaintively at you. For a moment, you kneel beside her, hand outstretched. She sniffs your fingers, then just as quickly draws back. A lifetime of being coddled and corralled makes her wary of new hands. A servant brings out the lady's falcon, hooded and regal, and you're struck by the contrast. The bird is wild at heart. It's training a constant battle of wills. The dog, meanwhile, has been shaped and reshaped to fit the mould of nobility, obedient, ornamental, harmless. But you can see that beneath the silks and ribbons there's a nervous energy, a sense that her fate is always just one misstep away from disaster. Lunch is a lavish affair. The dog gets her own plate filled with leftovers from the lady's meal. Roasted quail, marrow bones, bits of cheese. When she nibbles too slowly, a servant fusses, worried the lady will notice. Eat up, precious. Don't let Mama see you're off your food. You think of the dogs at home, gobbling whatever scraps they can find. Here, food is abundance, but it's also pressure. You overhear the butler complaining about the trouble the animals cause. 3 times this week the hounds raided the larder. That mastiff bit the page last month. And don't get me started on the mess the terriers leave in the solar. There's talk of kennels being cleaned with vinegar, of punishments meted out with a switch or a sharp word. You wonder how many pets in this house have lived to old age, or if their pampering masks a steady stream of replacements. One little white dog swapped for another when the lady tires of her. At dinner, the lord of the manor shows off his hunting pack. The dogs, tall and lean, prance in formation, ears pricked for commands. These aren't pets in the same sense as Lily. They're tools for sport, prestige, and sometimes warfare. Still, each has a name, a special place in the stables, and the lord speaks of them with pride. A well-bred hound is worth his weight in gold, he declares, as though speaking of a prize horse. But even the finest dog can fall from favour. The kitchen boy tells you about a sight hound that failed to catch a hare, its fate sealed with a single glare from the lord. Sent to the kennels, never saw it again, he whispers. Sometimes I think the kennelman eats better than the servants, with all those spare bits. You're not sure if he's joking. As dusk falls, Lady Margaret wraps Lily in a miniature cloak and carries her inside. The pet is fussed over by servants, but never left alone. Always watched, always expected to perform. There's no digging in the dirt, no chasing after sheep. Even her toys are delicate. Embroidered cushions, carved wooden mice. The dog sleeps in a velvet basket beside the lady's bed, but you suspect she dreams of open fields and muddy puddles. You slip away, mind-spinning. The world of noble pets is not the paradise it seems. Underneath the velvet and ribbons lies anxiety, pressure, and sometimes real danger. Even among the rich, a pet's fate is never secure. Fashion changes, tempers flare, fortunes rise and fall. Today's pampered lapdog can be tomorrow's outcast. Or worse. You think of your own kitten, curled beside the hearth. She may not have velvet collars or her own servant, but she's free to run, to hunt, to curl up on your lap without anyone scolding her for getting her fur dirty. Maybe that's its own kind of nobility, a freedom the lady's pets will never know. The ride home is quiet. You walk past fields where sheep graze under the watchful eyes of shepherds and their dogs. Here, the animals are workers, partners in survival. Their lives aren't easy, but they're lived on their own terms. You can't help but wonder if, in some ways, that muddy old herding dog is luckier than Lily, with all her ribbons and perfumes. As you reach your cottage, you hear the mewl of your kitten and the bark of a neighbour's dog. You realise that, for all the hardship and uncertainty of peasant life, your animals are truly part of your family, not just trophies or accessories. Historians still argue whether medieval nobles really loved their pets, or merely flaunted them as status symbols. Maybe there's truth on both sides, affection and ambition, comfort and cruelty, tangled together in every leash and collar. You light the fire, the kitten rubbing against your ankle, and think about the strange lives of pets. How a single misstep, a shift in fortune, or the turn of a fashion could change everything. Even in the grandest halls, the fate of a pet was always hanging by a thread, velvet or otherwise. Your kitten purrs, content and oblivious to the fates of noble lapdogs in distant manors. You promise yourself to treasure her, no matter what the world expects, because love, real love, doesn't care about ribbons or rules. As you drift to sleep, the echoes of laughter and barking dogs from the manor fade into the night, leaving you with a quiet certainty. In this world, every creature walks a fine line between comfort and cruelty, luxury and loss, and perhaps, just perhaps, the most precious thing you can give a pet is not velvet or silver, but the freedom to be itself, in all its muddy, mewling, tail-wagging glory. You wake the next morning to the heavy toll of the monastery bell, reverberating through the village and into the marrow of your bones. It's the kind of sound that says, "Up now, God is watching." You stretch and remember today is your turn to deliver bread to the monks. It's a task that always fills you with mixed excitement and anxiety. The monastery is a mysterious place, a world apart, sealed behind stone walls and thick with the scent of old books and candle wax. Your kitten watches as you wrap the still warm loaves in cloth. She mews, then stalks a mouse under the table, her tail flicking. The animal world always seems to ripple just beneath the surface of daily life. Cats and dogs, crows and toads, all running their own secret errands. Even as you shoulder the bread basket and step outside, you can't help but wonder what creatures you'll find on the other side of the monastery gate. The walk is quiet, dew sparkling on the grass. You cross fields where geese honk at you with the arrogance of royalty, and a pair of stray dogs roll in the dirt, tails wagging furiously. Their freedom, you think, must taste sweeter than anything in the manor kitchens. The monastery sits on a low hill, ringed by ancient yew trees. You pause at the gate, waiting for the porter to appear. He's a thin man with a face like an old apple, and he always smells faintly of ink and onion. Today he nods, lets you in, and shuffles back to his work, muttering something about the Psalms. Inside, the air changes. It's cooler here, tinged with incense and the distant, persistent rhythm of chanting. The monks drift through the corridors like ghosts, silent, brown-robed, sandals slapping the flagstones. You carry the bread to the kitchens, but your eyes stray to the corners, to the bits of fur and feather tucked away where you wouldn't expect them. It's not long before you see it. A red squirrel perched on a windowsill nibbling on an acorn, its tail fluffed like a feather duster. You try not to stare, but the sight is so strange, so charming, you can't help but smile. Across the hall, a calico cat slinks beneath the refectory benches, eyes bright and calculating. A young monk kneels nearby, feeding crumbs to a pair of wrens. For a moment you could almost forget you're in a holy place. It feels like an enchanted woodland, or one of the stories your grandmother used to tell, where monks befriend animals and whisper blessings to the birds. But the truth is more complicated. The monks, for all their vows of poverty and silence, are just as entangled with animals as the villagers outside. Some of these creatures are cherished, even coddled. Cats are treasured for their mousing skills, of course, but a few monks secretly treat them as companions, whispering secrets and stroking their ears during long night vigils. Squirrels, clever and nimble, are kept in wooden cages and shown off to visitors. A symbol of God's playful creativity, perhaps, or just a way to brighten the long, grey days. The monastery is a patchwork of piety and practical necessity. Pigeons are raised for food, bees for honey, hounds for guarding the gardens. You see one old brother, stooped with age, scattering oats for a flock of crows. God made them too, he says when he catches your eye, as if daring you to argue. But not every pet is safe here. In the scriptorium, where the monks labour over illuminated manuscripts, you spot a mouse darting between stacks of parchment. One of the brothers tries to catch it, cursing under his breath. A cat leaps onto the table, scattering quills and half-finished prayers, and the mouse escapes, at least for now. There's an edge to everything in the monastery, a tension between devotion and the messiness of real life. You overhear two monks arguing in low voices. One claims the cats are blessed, the other warns that too much affection for animals is a distraction from God. The prior settles the matter with a stern word and a pointed look at the altar. God loves all his creatures, but remember, there are no pets in heaven. The words stick with you. You can't help but think of all the animals who slip in and out of the monastery's shadows, beloved by some, cursed by others, never quite safe from the shifting winds of human opinion. There's a story told in whispers. A monk once kept a pet fox, raising it from a kit. It slept at his feet, licked his face, even learned to sit for prayers. But when the fox stole a roast from the kitchens and bit the cook, it was declared a devil servant and banished from the grounds. Some say it still prowls the woods at night, eyes glowing with old secrets. You pass the chapel, pausing to watch a ceremony in progress. The monks chant, voices rising and falling like the tide. At the edge of the choir, a small brown dog sits beside its master, tail wagging in time with the hymns. Seems almost comic, but no one laughs, at least not out loud. You wonder what it would be like to worship with a pet at your side, to find comfort in its warm fur and wet nose, even as you pray for your immortal soul. But the rules are strict here. The abbot, a stern man with a beard like iron filings, has little patience for animal distractions. He allows cats in the granary, dogs at the gate, but forbids pets in the dormitories. Affection is for God alone, he says, though you catch him once scratching a terrier behind the ears when he thinks no one's looking. Still, not all pets are merely tolerated. In some corners of the monastery, animals are woven into daily life in ways that surprise you. You hear of a cat named Felix who saved the abbey from a rat infestation, so beloved that he was given a tiny stone marker when he died. Another tale tells of a raven who delivered messages between monasteries, earning the grudging respect of even the strictest brothers. Yet for every animal cherished, there are others who meet darker fates. The monks are not immune to the fears and superstitions that swirl outside their walls. You remember overhearing a tale about a rooster that crowed at midnight, an omen of death, some said. The bird was caught, prayed over, and ultimately sacrificed, its blood sprinkled at the threshold to ward off evil. It's a reminder that pets here walk a razor's edge, loved one moment, scapegoated the next. A cat who catches a mouse is praised as a blessing. A cat who knocks over a chalice might be called a demon. You sense that no animal, no matter how clever or loyal, is ever completely safe. Historians still argue whether monastic communities were more compassionate to animals than the secular world, or whether their rules simply cloaked the same contradictions found in every village and manor. Some say the monks' love for animals was genuine, a reflection of their belief in the unity of all creation. Others point to the harsh punishments meted out to animals who strayed from their roles, the rituals and superstitions that turned companions into scapegoats overnight. You step into the cloister garden, where bees buzz among the herbs and a tortoiseshell cat sprawls in a patch of sun. A novice monk kneels nearby, tending to the plants. He glances up, smiles shyly, and gestures for you to sit. You do, sinking into the soft grass, your breadbasket forgotten for a moment. "Do you have a pet?" he asks, voice barely above a whisper. You nod, describing your kitten, her antics and her purr, the way she curls up on your lap at night. He listens intently, then tells you about the monastery's animals, the squirrels, the birds, the cats and dogs that come and go. "Sometimes I think they understand us better than we understand ourselves," he says, stroking the cat at his side. You talk for a while, sharing stories and laughter until the bell tolls again. The novice rises, dusts off his robe, and disappears into the shadows. You linger, watching the cat chase a butterfly, her movements fluid and free. For a moment, the world feels soft and safe, a place where animals and humans coexist in quiet harmony. But as you gather your things and prepare to leave, you're reminded that the line between pet and pest is always thin. Outside the kitchen, you see a monk with a broom, chasing a pack of stray dogs from the gate. In the orchard, a flock of crows descends on the apple trees, scattering before the cook's shouted curses. The monastery, for all its peace and piety, is a battlefield of species, a daily negotiation between affection and utility, compassion and control. You leave the bread with the cook and head home, mind swirling with images: the squirrel on the windowsill, the dog in the chapel, the cat in the garden. You wonder what will happen to them all, which will be cherished, which banished, which quietly forgotten when their usefulness ends. The road back to the village is long, but you walk slowly, savouring the memory of the animals you met today. You think of your kitten waiting by the hearth, her world so small and safe compared to the chaos of the monastery. You promise yourself to hold her close, to shield her from the shifting fortunes that rule the lives of pets in this strange, unpredictable world. As you pass the yew trees, you hear the distant yowl of a cat, the bark of a dog, the flap of a bird's wings. The animal world is always close, always just beneath the surface. You realise with a shiver that every creature, whether wild or tame, cherished or cursed, walks the same narrow path between comfort and danger, affection and exile. You reach home as the sun sets, painting the sky in bruised purples and gold. Your kitten greets you with a delighted trill, rubbing her face against your ankle. You scoop her up, bury your nose in her fur and whisper a promise. You're safe with me, for as long as I can keep you. But in your heart you know the truth. In this world nothing is certain, not love, not safety, not the gentle purr of a kitten by the fire. All you can do is cherish each moment, each heartbeat, each soft, warm body that shares your home. Tomorrow the tide may turn, tonight you hold her close. You're up before dawn, the world still cloaked in a watery blue light, and already the village is stirring. But there's a strange energy in the air, one you can feel in your chest as you watch your kitten twist around your ankles, rubbing her cheek against your toes. You scratch her behind the ears and smile, but the mood in the house is brittle, the grown-ups whispering with nervous eyes. By the time you step outside, everyone's on edge, glancing over their shoulders as if expecting trouble to slither down the lane. You make your way through the dewy grass, hugging your cloak close. Today, you're supposed to help gather herbs at the edge of the woods. You're not alone. The blacksmith's daughter is there, basket in hand, along with her small, scruffy dog, a loyal mutt who follows her everywhere. He barks when he sees you, tail wagging so hard his whole body wriggles. There's a comfort in that bark, a small reminder that some things in life are straightforward. But as you walk into the forest, you notice the looks. The dog sticks close to the girl, and your kitten, curious as always, pokes her nose out of your satchel. At first, it feels like a shared secret, but then the blacksmith's daughter shushes you. "Keep her hidden," she whispers. "Don't let the others see." You nod, unsure, but something in her voice tells you not to ask why. You tuck the kitten deeper into the satchel, where she settles with a small, indignant huff. The forest is hushed. The grown-ups collect herbs with practiced fingers, naming each one: mugwort, wormwood, wild garlic. The blacksmith's daughter hands you a sprig of yarrow, saying it wards off fever. Her dog runs in circles, stopping to sniff at shadows. "He always finds the best mushrooms," she says. But then she glances over her shoulder, lowering her voice. "My mother says I shouldn't let him follow me into the woods, not today." You can feel the tension mounting. You hear it in the way the old women mutter about omens, and in the way everyone keeps glancing toward the village, as if expecting someone or something to appear. When a black cat darts across the path, the group falls silent. Your heart skips. The women cross themselves. Someone murmurs, "Which is familiar," almost too softly to hear. Suddenly all eyes are on you and your satchel. You freeze, clutching the flap closed. The blacksmith's daughter steps in front of you, blocking their view, but the suspicion lingers, thick as smoke. You know the stories. Everyone does. In this part of the world, it's dangerous to stand out, especially if you're different, or unlucky, or simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Your kitten's fur isn't pure black, but that hardly matters. Even a hint of shadow is enough to set tongues wagging, and everyone's heard tales of women, usually older, sometimes young, being accused of witchcraft for keeping a cat or a dog that seems unnatural. Back in the village, you help carry the herbs into the apothecary's workshop. The blacksmith's daughter slips away, her dog on her heels, and you try to do the same. But a group of children blocks your path, pointing and giggling. "Show us your magic cat," one of them teases. Another leans in, wide-eyed. "Can it really talk? Did it bring you luck?" You laugh it off, but inside you're trembling. Later, as dusk falls, a commotion breaks out in the square. You hear shouting, "Witch!" and "Devil's work!" and your blood runs cold. You hurry to hide your kitten in the hayloft, heart pounding. From a safe vantage, you see a crowd gathered around the blacksmith's daughter. She's crying, clutching her dog as a stern-faced priest towers over her. The villagers are demanding an explanation. Why does her dog always follow her? Why did it bark at the priest's horse last week? Why does she spend so much time in the woods? The questions pile up, twisting into accusations. The girl tries to speak, but her words are drowned by the clamour. Your hands shake as you watch the scene. You know what's coming. The whispers grow. Witch's familiar. Demon dog. Someone suggests drowning the animal in the river, just to be sure. Another insists it should be burned, along with anything else the witch has touched. You want to shout that it's just a dog, loyal, silly, harmless, but you know your voice won't carry. Fear is a contagious thing, especially here, especially now. The priest pronounces judgment. The blacksmith's daughter is to be watched closely. Her dog will be kept under guard for the safety of all. The villagers nod, their relief palpable. The threat has been named, contained, at least for now. You slip back to the hayloft and scoop up your kitten, holding her close as you rock back and forth. Her purr is the only sound that calms you. But your thoughts churn. How did it come to this? How did animals, creatures meant for comfort and companionship, become symbols of danger? You remember stories from the grown-ups of women accused of witchcraft for keeping cats that stared too long at the moon, or dogs that howled at the wrong hour. You remember tales of old crones dragged from their homes, their animals seized and killed in public, proof of their pacts with the devil. It doesn't make sense, not really. But in a world ruled by uncertainty, famine, disease, war, people cling to anything that offers an explanation, even if it's cruel. If the crops fail, blame the cat. If the baby sickens, blame the dog. If a storm ruins the barley, blame the witch and her familiar. Historians still argue whether these fears were truly believed, or whether they were tools of control, ways for those in power to punish anyone who stepped out of line. Maybe both are true. All you know is that pets once cherished can become scapegoats in an instant. You sneak through the village at twilight, avoiding the main square. Your kitten, hidden beneath your cloak, trembles as if she knows she's in danger. You duck into the old stable, where the blacksmith's daughter is waiting, her face streaked with tears. Her dog, normally so lively, cowers at her feet. You sit together in the straw, sharing what little comfort you can. She tells you about her dog, how he once pulled her from a swollen stream, how he guards her while she sleeps. She can't understand how people could see him as evil. "He's just a dog," she whispers, stroking his head. "He loves me, that's all." You nod, knowing words won't fix anything, but you promise silently to help her watch over him. For a while you talk of happier times, of games in the fields, of secret trails in the woods. The animals curl close, warmth against the gathering chill. The next few days are tense. The blacksmith's daughter is watched wherever she goes. The priest eyes every animal with suspicion. You keep your kitten hidden as much as you can, but rumours spread. One afternoon, someone throws a stone at your window, hissing, "Witch!" under their breath. Fear seeps into every corner of your life. The grown-ups urge caution. Your friends avoid you, afraid to be tainted by association. The animals sense it too. They're quieter, sticking close to your side, eyes wide and wary. But life must go on. The village still needs its hunters, its mousers, its loyal hounds. Even those who shout the loudest against witches' familiars can't do without a good ratter or a sheepdog. It's a strange hypocrisy, one that you notice more and more as the days pass. One evening, you see the blacksmith's daughter sneaking food to her dog behind the smithy. You join her, sharing bread and stories. For a moment, it's almost like things used to be, but the fear never fully disappears. As autumn turns the leaves, the village grows restless again. Another illness sweeps through, this time taking 2 young children. Grief twists into anger. Someone blames the blacksmith's daughter, saying her dog howled at the moon the night before the fever struck. The whispers return, sharper than ever. You beg your parents to let you keep the kitten inside, away from prying eyes. They agree, but you can see the fear in their faces. No one is safe from suspicion. Pets, once sources of joy, become reminders of danger. You hear too of things happening in the next village. a woman accused of bewitching the well, her cat drowned in the river, her cottage burned. The stories are everywhere, and no one is brave enough to protest. You and the blacksmith's daughter meet less often now, afraid of drawing attention. But you never stop caring for your animals. Each day you find small ways to show them love, a scrap of meat, a gentle touch, a whispered promise to keep them safe. You wonder how many others live like this, hiding their affections, praying their pets won't attract the wrong kind of notice. Historians will one day puzzle over these times, debating whether people truly fear the power of animals or simply needed someone to blame when life became too hard. The truth, you suspect, is somewhere in between. Pets are both cherished and feared, symbols of comfort and danger. Their fate is bound to yours, caught in the web of superstition and survival that defines your world. But you know, deep down, that you can't protect her from everything. In a world where love can turn to suspicion in the blink of an eye, even the softest purr or wagging tail can become a curse. As winter approaches, you and the blacksmith's daughter settle into a wary routine. You share news, watch over your animals, and hope that the village's fear will fade. Sometimes, in the safety of your own home, you let your kitten curl on your lap and imagine a world where pets are just pets. Nothing more, nothing less. But out there in the cold, suspicion still prowls, and so you hold your animals tight, cherishing every heartbeat, every moment of warmth, knowing how fragile it all is. It begins with a cough. Not yours, but someone in the cottage next door, then another. Within days, it seems like the entire village is sick. The sound of hacking lungs and feverish groans filling the narrow lanes and drifting out over the fields. The air smells different, rancid, thick, with worry. It's not the first time you've heard stories about plague, but this time it isn't a distant rumour. It's here, and it's coming for everyone, beast and human alike. You spend the morning sweeping the rushes out from under the table, watching your kitten play with a scrap of wool. She chases it in dizzying circles, oblivious to the fear gripping the adults. When the priest stops by to offer blessings and warnings, you overhear his grave conversation with your father. We must be vigilant. Evil travels with vermin, rats, cats, dogs. They may all carry the mark. After he leaves, you ask what he meant, but your mother hushes you. She glances at your kitten, then at the windows and mutters a prayer under her breath. You sense she's afraid to say more. The next few days are a blur. Some families pack their things and flee to distant relatives. Others hole up in their homes, barring the doors with planks and nailing scraps of linen over every gap. The village is quieter now, except for the constant chorus of coughs and, just as often, the howling of hungry dogs left to wander when their owners vanish or die. Your kitten, at least, seems untouched by fear. But the world has changed for her too. When you set foot outside, you notice fewer animals about. The dogs that once prowled the lanes are gone. The cats, once so bold, slip through shadows, vanishing at the first sign of movement. In the market square, a rumour starts to spread, one you hear from the baker's apprentice as he shovels stale loaves from the oven. They say the plague is carried by animals, he whispers. Dogs, cats. People blame them. Some folks are drowning their pets, or worse. I saw it myself up at the mill. You stare at him, horrified. But they keep the rats away, you protest, voice shaking. He shrugs, eyes wide. That's not what the priest says. People are scared, they'll do anything. That night you tuck your kitten close, unable to sleep. You hear raised voices in the street, a woman weeping, a man shouting about bad omens and cleansing the village. The next morning there are fewer dogs barking, fewer cats sunning themselves on the fences. A week passes, the plague tightens its grip, the sick are carried away on makeshift stretchers, a pyre burns day and night at the edge of the fields. You're told to stay inside, but curiosity gets the better of you. You slip out after dark, your kitten tucked into your cloak, and make your way to the outskirts. There by the smouldering fire you see a crowd gathered. They're arguing. Some want to round up all the cats and dogs, others plead to spare them. The village priest stands in the centre, brandishing a Bible. "These animals carry the devil's breath," he cries. "We must drive out the plague, burn the wicked, cast out the cursed." Someone throws a stone at a stray dog. The animal yelps and flees. Another man chases after a cat with a stick, but she slips through a crack in the wall and disappears. A young girl weeps openly, clutching her puppy to her chest as her father tries to pull it away. You retreat, heart pounding, unsure if you're more afraid for your kitten or yourself. By morning, the world is quieter still. The village is divided. Some hide their pets, others turn them out, terrified of being accused of harbouring evil. The most desperate go house to house, hunting for animals to drive away or kill. The sense of panic is everywhere, heavy as wet linen. You hear tales from neighbouring villages, hundreds of animals killed, their bodies left in heaps at crossroads, the hope that their sacrifice might somehow appease the gods or fate or whatever power controls the sickness. At home, you do everything you can to keep your kitten safe. You barricade the doors, hide her in the bread oven, and tell anyone who asks that she ran away. Your mother helps, though she still murmurs prayers and glances uneasily at the place where your kitten curls up at night. Your father, grim and silent, sharpens his axe at the hearth, as if preparing for some invisible foe. Days blend into nights. The air fills with the scent of smoke and death. Food grows scarce. The dog next door, once your playmate, disappears. You see a boy searching for his missing cat, tears tracking down his dusty face. No one helps him. The village has become a place of secrets and sorrow. One day you wake to find your kitten ill. She's listless, her eyes glazed, her breathing ragged. You panic, rushing to your mother for help. She presses her hand to the kitten's side, sighs and whispers, "It's the fever." Nothing can be done. You plead with her, beg her to find a way, but she shakes her head. "If anyone finds out, they'll blame us. They'll say we brought this on the village." You don't want to believe her, but you've seen what fear can do. So you nurse your kitten in secret, bringing her bits of broth and fresh water, praying she'll recover. You stay awake through the night, stroking her fur, whispering that she'll be safe. Sometimes she purrs, but more often she just lies still, her small body burning with fever. Somehow she pulls through. Her eyes clear, her strength returns. You cry with relief, but the fear never really leaves. Outside, things are no better. The plague lingers. The villagers have turned on each other, suspicion flaring at the slightest sign of illness or odd behaviour. If a dog coughs, if a cat sneezes, someone always mutters about the devil's work. It isn't just your village. Word arrives from the nearby town that the mayor has ordered a mass culling of all stray animals. Horses are spared, but dogs and cats, any creature thought to carry the plague, are rounded up and killed. The streets run with blood, and the rats, unbothered by the carnage, multiply in the shadows. Historians still argue whether the killing of animals made the plague worse. Some say that by getting rid of the cats and dogs, people only helped the rats flourish, and with them the fleas that carried the disease. Others insist the villagers had no way of knowing the truth, only that fear is a powerful master, and in desperate times, reason is the first thing to die. You overhear a story told by a merchant passing through. In the city, he says, things are even more brutal. Entire kennels emptied in the night, the howls of hounds echoing through deserted streets. Some people cling to their pets, hiding them in cellars or sending them away to distant farms. Others turn them in willingly, convinced that sacrifice will save their families. You think of all the animals lost, of the dogs who once guarded homes and the cats who kept the grain safe from mice. You wonder if anyone will remember them, or if their deaths will be buried under layers of fear and forgetfulness. One afternoon, the sky bruised and heavy, you spot a group of children clustered around a basket. You edge closer, heart sinking as you see the kittens inside, trembling and silent. The children are arguing. Some want to keep them, others insist they must be drowned for the good of the village. The debate grows heated, until finally an older boy grabs the basket and storms off toward the river. You want to stop him, but you know it's no use. The world has changed and you are powerless to stop its turning. That night, you sit by the hearth, your kitten curled in your lap. The fire casts flickering shadows on the walls. You think about how easily love can turn to fear, how quickly kindness can be replaced by cruelty. The adults say the plague is a punishment, a test of faith. But you wonder if it's something simpler, a reminder that in the end, everyone is afraid of losing what they love. You stroke your kitten's fur, promising her that she will always have a place by your side. But you know that promise is only as strong as the world allows. Tomorrow, the fever may come for you or for her. Tomorrow the villagers may come with their torches and their superstitions. Still, you hold on. You refuse to let fear drive out love, even as the world grows darker. As the days shorten and the chill sets in, the village begins to recover. The worst of the plague passes, though its scars remain. Some families return, others never do. The animals that survived creep back, tentative and thin. You notice more rats now, bold as ever, gnawing at the grain stores. The irony isn't lost on you. The very animals blamed for the plague were the ones keeping the real culprits at bay. You tell this to anyone who'll listen, but most just shrug. People are tired, worn down by grief and fear. They don't want to hear about mistakes, they just want to move on. You do your best to rebuild. You share what little you have with your kitten, teaching her to hunt again, to stay hidden, to avoid strangers. You help the blacksmith's daughter search for her lost dog, though you both know the truth. The village isn't what it once was. The bonds of trust between neighbours, between people and their animals, have been stretched thin, almost to breaking. One evening you sit in the garden, your kitten chasing moths in the dusk. You wonder what will come next. Will the world ever be safe for her again? For you? You stand, call her name, and she comes running, her eyes bright in the fading light. You gather her up, whispering a promise that you'll protect her, whatever it takes. Tomorrow is uncertain, but tonight you have each other, and that for now is enough. You wake with a start to a sound you don't recognize. A harsh, guttural cry echoing through the chilly morning air, mixing with the clatter of carts and the grumble of distant thunder. The kitten beside you bristles, her fur puffed up like a dandelion in the wind. You sit up, heart thudding, and move to the window. Below, in the lane, something extraordinary is happening. A caravan, painted in faded blues and reds, creaks its way into the village square. Men in odd patchwork cloaks lead a procession of animals. A towering brown bear, muzzled and chained, a pair of monkeys dressed in patched shirts, a falcon perched on a handler's thick leather glove, and, at the end, something that looks suspiciously like a lion, its mane tangled but proud. Children press forward, eyes wide. Even the adults, who know better than to get too close to anything with teeth, crane their necks for a better look. You have never seen such creatures except in tattered bestiaries or whispered stories. You barely notice the troop's leader, a thin, sharp-nosed man in a battered hat, barking for attention. His voice cuts through the morning fog. Come one, come all, witness the wonders of the world, tamed by hand, by wit, by the will of men. Step forward, friends. You slip your kitten into your cloak and join the swelling crowd, curiosity and dread pulling you forward. The square is transformed. Bright banners flap in the breeze, drums thump, and someone juggles coloured balls while the bear lumbers behind a thick rope. The monkeys leap from one handler to another, tugging at people's sleeves, snatching apples, even balancing on the shoulders of delighted children. Your gaze lingers on the falcon, her eyes golden and hard. She sits utterly still, alert, feathers gleaming in the thin sunlight. You've seen birds of prey before, though never so close. The village lord's huntsmen sometimes show off their hawks, creatures of discipline and deadly beauty, bound to their masters by intricate hoods and the promise of meat. You remember how the lord would boast of his birds, claiming they could read his mind, hunt with a single glance. You always wondered if that was true, or if the birds simply tolerated their lot. The lion, though, is what truly holds your attention. He's not as large as you imagined from stories, but he is still enormous. Muscle beneath golden fur, paws the size of your head. He seems half asleep, and you're grateful for the thick chain locked around his neck. A woman with clever hands and bright eyes is brushing his mane. She glances up, catches your stare, and winks as if to say, yes, he is real, and yes, he could eat us all. The show begins. The bear is coaxed onto his hind legs, forced to shuffle and turn circles for stale bread and cheers. The crowd laughs, claps, throws pennies. The bear's handler cracks a whip, not hard, just enough to remind the animal who's in charge. When the bear sits, panting, children rush forward to pat his fur, parents beaming at the spectacle. Then come the monkeys, tumbling and shrieking, stealing hats, upending baskets, leaping from one villager's head to another. Their handlers are never far behind, pulling them back with short leashes, scolding and cajoling. The monkeys chatter, always watching, always waiting for the next opportunity to break free. Next, the falconer steps forward. He lifts the bird high, then snaps off her hood. With a cry, she launches into the sky, arcing, wheeling, diving. For a moment, all eyes are on her. The falconer tosses a scrap of meat into the air, and she snatches it mid-flight, returning to his glove for her reward. The crowd is awed, but you sense the bird's indifference. Her loyalty, you suspect, is only as strong as her hunger. Last comes the lion. He's prodded onto a raised wooden platform, the woman still stroking his mane and murmuring to him. The crowd falls silent as the handler steps away, leaving the great beast alone. For a moment, the only sound is the lion's breathing, slow and deep as thunder. The troop's leader steps up, bowing low. "The king of beasts," he announces, "from the farthest lands tamed by human hand." But the lion does nothing. He simply stares, tail flicking, golden eyes watching the villagers with bored disdain. The handler tries again, coaxing, promising meat, but the lion refuses to move. Finally, the leader gives up, ushering the beast back behind the curtain. The crowd laughs, some disappointed, others relieved. The show ends with coins tossed, hats passed, and the animals return to their wagons. The bear shuffles off, tongue lolling. The monkeys are scooped up and stuffed into cages. The falcon perches once more on her handler's glove, silent and regal. The lion disappears, but you sense his presence behind the faded canvas, resentful, wary, and utterly alien. As the crowd disperses, you linger at the edge of the square. You find yourself thinking not of the spectacle, but of the lives these animals must lead. The bear's scars half hidden by fur, the monkey's restlessness, the falcon's fierce gaze, the lion's heavy chains, all signs that their place in this world is precarious at best. You wonder what it must be like to be a creature so far from home, paraded for amusement, trained with fear and hunger. You remember the stories of royal courts where kings kept leopards and cheetahs as pets, more for prestige than love. Some lived in gilded cages, pampered with rare meats and silk cushions, but most died young, unable to survive the winters, the long journeys, or the whims of their keepers. You recall a tale told by a travelling friar, a king in the east who kept a menagerie of wild beasts, believing their power would rub off on him. When one of his leopards escaped and killed a servant, the animal was hunted down and displayed in the market, its pelts stretched for all to see. To remind us, the friar said, that even kings cannot tame nature for long. Back in your own village, you notice the changes the animal troop has left behind. Children play at being bears and lions, chasing each other through the mud. Some try to teach their dogs to dance or their cats to fetch, with predictably disastrous results. A few days later, the troop is gone, off to the next town, their strange menagerie rumbling along the rutted roads. But the memory lingers. You find yourself watching your own kitten differently, wondering what she would do if forced to perform, to dance on command, to spend her life in a cage. You can't imagine her ever bowing to anyone's will. Her pride, her spirit are too strong. Historians still argue whether these travelling animal shows were cruel by the standards of their time, or simply a reflection of the world's hunger for wonder and novelty. Some say the handlers cared for their charges, loved them even, risking their lives to protect them from angry crowds or harsh winters. Others insist the animals were little more than slaves, their lives measured in coins and cheers. You lean toward the latter, especially when you see the empty cages left behind, the muddy paw prints, the handful of feathers drifting across the square. You hear too stories from other villages, bears beaten for refusing to dance, monkeys abandoned when they grew old and sick, falcons crippled by poor training. The world is a harsh place for those without power, and even more so for animals whose fates are tied to human whims. One evening, weeks later, you pass a field where the animal troop once camped. You find a single brass bell, small and battered, half buried in the mud. You pick it up, turning it over in your hand, and wonder which animal wore it. The bear, the lion, one of the monkeys. You tuck it into your pocket, a small reminder that even the strangest lives leave traces behind. Back at home, your kitten curls up beside you, purring softly. You scratch her chin and think about how lucky she is to be free, to hunt, to play, to sleep where she chooses. You vow, quietly, never to let her suffer the way those animals did, forced to perform for a world that cares more for spectacle than kindness. Yet, even as you make that promise, you know how fragile freedom is. The world is always changing, always looking for the next marvel, the next distraction. You wonder what stories will be told about these animals, whether anyone will remember their names, their lives, their suffering. You fall asleep with your kitten curled close, dreaming of wild places, of forests and mountains where bears roam free, where lions rule, where falcons soar without tethers. You dream too of a world where animals are loved for who they are, not what they can do or how much applause they can earn. Morning comes, cold and bright. You wake to the sound of bird song and your kitten's quiet mewl. The square is empty now, the last traces of the animal troop fading into memory. But you remember, and you hope that, somewhere, somehow, those creatures find peace. You gather your things, ready to face another day, and as you leave you pause to scratch your kitten behind the ears. She purrs, leaning into your hand, and you realize that, despite everything, there is still room in this world for tenderness, for companionship, for love that asks nothing in return. You rise to a world blanketed in grey drizzle, the kind of weather that seeps into your bones and makes you dream of nothing more than a warm fire and a dry blanket. The air smells faintly of wood smoke and old mud. Your kitten noses her way across the windowsill, watching the drops roll down the glass. Outside, the village moves slowly, carts creaking, chickens foraging in soggy straw, a handful of dogs nosing for scraps where the bakery door hangs open. But today is not a day for lazing by the hearth. Today, your chores lead you past the green, toward the edge of the village, where a travelling show has pitched its ragged tents. The memory of yesterday's animal troop lingers, but this is something different. There is no exotic bear or lion here, just a handful of local men in garish costumes, a fiddler, and a handful of tired-looking animals, a goat with painted horns, a crow tethered to a stick, and most pitiful of all, a skinny sad-eyed dog forced to dance for coins. Children gather first, then adults, drawn by the promise of laughter or maybe just a break from the everyday grind. You join the crowd, kitten perched in your arms, as the fiddler strikes up a tune. The show is a rough, muddy affair, a jumble of jokes, pratfalls and tricks, punctuated by the barked commands and the anxious shuffling of the animals. The dog, a once proud sheepdog with patches of fur missing, hops on his hind legs, balancing a battered tin cup on his nose. The crowd claps. Someone tosses a crust of bread. The dog eats quickly, eyes flicking to his handler for permission. You notice the rope burns around his neck, the way his tail curls tight between his legs. There's applause, but it's thin, awkward. Half the village can see what you see, but no one says a word. Next comes the goat, led into the centre ring to butt heads with a painted wooden bull. The crowd laughs as the goat wins, knocking the dummy to the mud. You wonder if the goat even notices, or if he's simply hungry, searching for a stray leaf among the trampled grass. The crow, sleek and iridescent, is forced to sing. His handler prods him, and he lets out a single raucous caw. The handler bows low, collecting pennies, never once letting go of the thin, fraying cord tied around the bird's ankle. You feel a pang of pity, wishing you could do something for these animals. You remember your kitten, safe at home, curled in your bed, free to roam and sleep and play as she pleases. You hold her closer, whispering that she'll never have to dance for anyone's amusement. As the show ends, the men gather their animals, counting coins, and hurry off to the warmth of the tavern. The children scatter, some laughing, others quiet, lost in thought. You hang back, watching as the sheepdog lingers by the stage, ears drooping, eyes scanning the crowd. He seems to be searching for someone, anyone, to take him home. You turn to leave, but a hand grabs your sleeve. It's the baker's son, eyes wide. "Come on," he whispers. "Let's go see the animals up close." He leads you behind the tents, where the performers have tied up their charges for the night. The sheepdog lies curled in a patch of mud, the goat chews at his rope, and the crow preens sullenly, tugging at his fetters. For a moment, you simply watch. The dog's eyes meet yours. He thumps his tail, once, then goes still. The goat noses your hand, searching for food. The crow sidesteps, wary, but doesn't try to fly away. You wish you could undo their chains, open the gates, let them all disappear into the night, but you know better. Freedom here is a dangerous wish. You and the baker's son slip away before you're noticed, your kitten tucked deep in your coat. As you walk home, the sky darkens and the rain grows heavier. The image of the dog shivering in the mud haunts you. At supper, your father tells a story from his own childhood. "We used to keep a pig," he says, his voice thick with memory. "Named him Truffle, because he'd dig up every root in the garden. He was clever, smarter than most people, I'd say. Followed me everywhere. I loved that pig." You smile, but you know there's more to the tale. "What happened to him?" you ask quietly. Your father sighs, staring into the fire. "Winter came, food ran low, we had no choice." He doesn't finish, but you understand. In the village, pets and livestock live side by side, and the line between companion and dinner guest is as thin as the ice on the well. Your mother chimes in, telling her own story, a hen that followed her as a girl, clucking at her heels, roosting by her pillow during storms. "We named her Lady," she says. "She laid eggs every morning, and I thought she'd live forever. But when the fevers came, my father said we needed broth to make her strong. Lady was the first to go." You look down at your kitten, asleep in your lap, and feel a cold chill run through you. You wonder how many animals in the village have been loved like family, only to become food in hard times. You realise, with a pang, that every household has a story like this, of a piglet named Truffle, a chicken called Lady, a lamb who slept by the fire and then vanished. The next morning you visit the blacksmith's daughter. Her dog, still under suspicion, is chained to a post. She sits beside him, brushing his fur, whispering reassurances. "He's more than just a dog," she says, looking up at you. "He's my friend, my brother even." You nod, understanding completely. You both walk together, her dog trailing behind on his heavy chain. As you pass the baker's house, you see the family's piglets playing in the yard. One wears a bit of red ribbon, a child's attempt at claiming the animal as a pet. But you know, as everyone does, that one day soon that ribbon will be gone, and the piglet will be dinner. You pass the shepherd's flock watched over by a fierce old sheepdog. "He's a good boy," the shepherd says proudly, "but he'll never sleep by the hearth. That's not his place." You see the logic, but part of you wonders if the dog might like a warm place to rest, a gentle hand to scratch behind his ears. As you walk, you notice a pattern. Almost every family keeps at least one animal as a sort of in-between, neither quite pet nor quite livestock. The children name them, teach them tricks, dress them in scraps of cloth. The adults shake their heads but rarely stop them. It's as if the whole village is pretending for a while that the world is kinder than it really is. But reality always intrudes. When hunger bites, when illness spreads, when fear takes hold, the animals are the first to pay the price. You hear of a family down the lane forced to eat their beloved goose after the harvest failed. Another sold their donkey, who'd carried the youngest child to market for years, to a stranger who didn't even know his name. The blacksmith's daughter sighs. Sometimes I think it would be better not to love them, she confides. Then it wouldn't hurt so much when they're gone. You squeeze her hand, not sure what to say. You know she's right, but you also know you couldn't stop loving your kitten even if you tried. That evening you help your mother prepare supper. She asks you to fetch eggs from the hen house. As you enter, the hens cluck and fuss, crowding at your feet. You spot one, smaller than the others, with a funny little hop, who always lets you stroke her feathers. You wonder if she knows her fate, or if she simply trusts that the world will go on as it always has. After supper, the family gathers by the fire. Your father tells more stories, of a goat who saved his life in a snowstorm, a dog who warned the village of a coming flood, a cat who kept the mice from eating the winter grain. Each story ends the same way. The animal is gone, remembered fondly, but always inevitably lost. You sit quietly, your kitten purring in your lap, and think about all the animals you've known. You remember the sheepdog at the show, the goat with painted horns, the piglet with the red ribbon, the clever crow. You realise that, in this world, pets and dinner guests are often the same. The only difference is luck and timing. Historians still argue whether medieval villagers truly loved their animals, or if affection was just a luxury for the rich. Some say the peasants were too poor, too desperate to care about their animals beyond their usefulness. Others point to the countless stories, passed down, whispered by the fire, of animals loved and lost, mourned like family. You suspect the truth is somewhere in between. Love is a luxury, yes, but it's also a necessity, a small stubborn flame that keeps the dark at bay. You understand now why the children name their piglets, why the blacksmith's daughter weeps for her dog, why your mother still remembers her hen lady. You fall asleep that night with your kitten pressed close, grateful for her warmth and her trust. You promise her, as you have so many times before, that she'll always have a place in your home, even if the world outside is harsh, even if love means heartbreak. The rain taps at the window, the fire dies low, and you dream of a world where every animal is safe, every pet is truly family, and no one has to choose between hunger and love. You wake to the low, lazy grunting of pigs just beyond your window, the early morning mist swirling around the farmyard like something out of a dream. The air smells of wet earth, hay, and the sour tang of manure. Your kitten is curled in the crook of your elbow, purring as if the world outside could never touch her. But even before you open your eyes fully, you hear the sounds of the day beginning. Children shouting, a dog barking, and the muffled voices of your neighbours already at work. Today is slaughter day. It's the sort of day everyone knows is coming, even if no one speaks of it. You feel it in the anxious way people move, in the way the children are shooed from the barn, in the hush that falls as the sun climbs higher. There's a tension in the village, a nervous energy that makes your heart pound a little harder. Your kitten senses it too. She's more cautious, her eyes wide, her tail flicking as she follows you from room to room. You try to busy yourself with chores, sweeping out the cottage and fetching water from the well, but everywhere you go, reminders of what's to come lurk around every corner. The neighbours, Piglet, Truffle, named, loved, sometimes dressed in an old child's shirt, squeals as he's led from his pen, oblivious to his fate. The shepherd's wife stands outside with her lamb, stroking its ears, whispering soft goodbyes as if she can will it to stay. A child clings to a rooster, refusing to let go, until her mother gently pries her fingers loose. You wonder, as you watch, how anyone learns to live with this cycle, this loving and letting go, this drawing close only to push away. But here, in the village, it's simply how things are. Pets and livestock aren't so much categories as phases. Truffle the piglet is a playmate in spring, a companion in summer, and a meal in winter. The same dog who sleeps by your feet tonight might be gone by next season, traded for a sack of flour or lost to a sudden illness. Your mother calls you to help with the preparations. You hesitate, glancing at your kitten, who watches you with unblinking eyes. You scoop her into your arms, whisper a promise, and tuck her safely away before following your mother outside. In the yard, the air is thick with nervous anticipation. The men have gathered, sharpening knives and hauling buckets of water. The women stand by with bowls and cloths, their faces set and determined. It's a ritual as old as the village itself, repeated every year, every season, with as much tenderness as necessity allows. Truffle is brought forward, his nose twitching, his little tail wagging. The children watch from a distance, some crying, others silent. Your mother explains, in a voice meant to comfort, that this is the way of things. Truffle has been loved, cared for, and now he will feed the family through the long, hard months ahead. It doesn't make it any easier. You stand at the edge of the yard, hands clenched as the work begins. It's quick, efficient, but not without sorrow. The grown-ups move with practiced hands, but you see the way their eyes shine, the way their voices tremble when they think no one is listening. When it's over, the village gathers for the feast. The table is laid with everything the season can provide: bread, cheese, root vegetables, and at the centre, the roast that was truffle. The grown-ups eat in silence at first, but soon the room fills with stories. They talk of Truffle's antics, the time he escaped his pen, the way he'd snuggle with the children, the morning he found the lost key to the granary. It's a strange sort of comfort, this sharing of memories. The children listen, laughing and crying in turn, and even the adults seem to take solace in the telling. It's as if, by remembering, they can soften the edge of what's been lost. After the meal, you slip outside, needing air. The night is cool, stars winking overhead. You find the shepherd's wife sitting by the empty lamb pen, humming a lullaby. She looks up, pats the bench beside her, and you join her in silence. "Hardest part of living here," she finally says, "is learning that love and loss are two sides of the same coin." She smiles sadly. "But I wouldn't trade the love, even for the hurt." You nod, understanding in your bones. You think of your kitten safe inside and wonder what you would do if she ever faced the fate of so many village pets. The days that follow are quieter. The children play, but their games are gentler, their laughter tinged with something older and wiser. The adults go back to their routines, but you notice they're softer with the animals, a little more patient, a little more tender. You help your mother in the garden, your kitten chasing butterflies at your feet. You pass the baker's house and see their piglet, now the only one left, asleep in the sun. The baker's daughter strokes its ears, whispering secrets. You know she's already bracing herself for the day she'll have to say goodbye. You overhear stories from other families: a cow who gave milk for 10 years, mourned like a grandmother when she died; a rooster who saved the family from fire, remembered long after he was gone. The lines between pet and livestock blur until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Some evenings you gather with the other children to tell stories about the animals you've known. There's laughter, yes, but also tears. You share tales of the cat who could open doors, the dog who chased away wolves, the goose who guarded the gate like a soldier. Historians still argue about the role of pets in villages like yours. Some say the villagers were too practical to truly love their animals. That affection was a luxury only the rich could afford. Others insist the bonds were real, deep, complicated, and essential to survival. You believe both are true. You've seen the way the grown-ups weep for a lost animal, even as they sharpen the knife. One morning you wake to find your kitten missing. Panic flares in your chest as you search the house, the yard, the barn. You find her at last, curled in the hayloft beside a newborn calf, purring as if she owns the world. Relief floods through you, and you promise again, fervently, fiercely, that you'll always keep her safe. You wonder sometimes if you could ever eat an animal you'd named, loved, raised from a baby. You hope you'll never have to find out, but you know that in this village the line is always shifting, always uncertain. You hear stories of towns where animals are treated differently, where pets are pampered, never slaughtered, buried in little cemeteries with flowers and stones. You dream of living in such a place, but you know it's just a fantasy, a world apart from the realities of hunger and survival. And yet, for all the hardship, there is love here. Deep, stubborn, unyielding. You see it in the way the blacksmith's daughter cradles her dog, in the way your father remembers truffle, in the way your mother still hums the song her hen lady loved best. On cold nights, when the wind rattles the shutters and the dark feels endless, you hold your kitten close and tell her all your secrets. She listens, her eyes wise and unblinking, and you know that, no matter what the world demands, love will always find a way. You sleep finally dreaming of a world where pets and dinner guests are never the same, where every animal is safe, cherished, remembered. In the morning, you wake to the sound of bird song, your kitten kneading your chest, demanding breakfast. The village is waking too. Another day of loving, letting go, and loving again. You wake to an uneasy quiet, the kind that settles on the village like a heavy blanket before a storm. The skies are flat grey, the birds muted, and even the dogs seem reluctant to bark. You stretch, rubbing the sleep from your eyes, and spot your kitten curled up in the crook of your arm. She blinks at you, yawns, then immediately leaps to the windowsill to watch the world outside. Something is different today, though you can't yet say what. After breakfast, your mother sends you to the market square to fetch bread and cheese. You hurry along muddy lanes, your kitten trotting behind, tail high. When you reach the square, a strange sight greets you. A crowd has gathered in front of the old wooden hall, the makeshift court where the village settles disputes, hears confessions, and sometimes delivers justice. At the centre, a commotion. A dog stands on a crude platform, its ears back, tail between its legs. Next to him is the miller, red-faced and shouting, pointing at the animal as if he's addressing the king's own judges. Beside him sits the reeve, taking notes with an old crow's feather, and a gaggle of villagers, curious, sceptical, some quietly laughing, others not so sure. You push to the front and listen, heart pounding. The miller accuses the dog of stealing a string of sausages from his kitchen and knocking over a jar of precious honey. "That beast is a menace," he cries. "He's been causing trouble for months. Something must be done." The reeve looks grave, lips pursed. "Let the evidence be heard," he declares, waving his quill like a scepter. The butcher steps forward, insisting the dog chased his chickens and made off with a Sunday roast. Others join in, some blaming, some defending. The children, of course, vouch for the dog's loyalty, while the elders shake their heads and mutter about the old days, when justice was swift and harsh. You realise with a chill that the dog is really on trial. Not just in jest, there's a seriousness in the air, a sense that what happens here will set a precedent. You've heard stories before of animals tried and even executed in distant towns, but you always thought they were just that, stories. Fables to scare naughty children or amuse the bored, yet here it is, unfolding before your eyes. The reeve listens to every accusation and defence. He calls witnesses, children, grown-ups, even the priest, who intones a blessing but avoids taking sides. The dog's owner, a poor widow named Martha, pleads on her knees. "He's all I have left," she sobs. "He keeps the rats from my store, he's never hurt a soul." The reeve deliberates, consulting the village elders, scratching his chin. You watch the dog trembling on his makeshift dock and feel a surge of helplessness. How can anyone blame an animal for acting on hunger? For following the instincts that humans too feel every winter when food runs low? After what feels like an eternity, the reeve stands. "This dog has been a nuisance," he says, his voice echoing through the square. But he is not beyond redemption. He must be kept on a short leash, and if he offends again, he will be banished. Let this be a lesson to all. He raps the bench for emphasis, and the villagers murmur approval, some relieved, others grumbling. Martha weeps with gratitude, hugging her dog who licks her face and wags his tail, unaware of how close he came to a much grimmer fate. The crowd disperses, some shaking their heads at the softness of the court, others quietly relieved. You walk home in a daze, your kitten bounding along, blissfully ignorant of human folly. The day's events churn in your mind. You realise that in this world, animals live under the shadow of human laws as much as human love. A dog can be put on trial, a pig can be seized for taxes, a rooster can be condemned for crowing at the wrong hour. Over supper, you tell your family what happened. Your father isn't surprised. Animals are part of the village, he says. When things go wrong, people need someone, or something, to blame. Your mother shakes her head. It's not right, but it's always been that way. After the meal, you help your father repair a broken fence. As you work, you remember other stories you've heard, of pigs dressed in clothes and paraded through town before execution, of a rooster sentenced for laying an egg, which the villagers believed was witchcraft, of goats who were tried for eating the Lord's roses. The stories seem absurd, yet they all share a truth. Animals, though loved, are never fully free. Their fates are tied to human moods, customs, and fears. Historians still argue about the meaning of these animal trials. Some say they were relics of an older time, a way for villagers to make sense of chaos, to feel some measure of control over the unpredictable world around them. Others see them as cruelty disguised as ritual, a reminder that justice in the end is as fragile as a summer breeze. You finish mending the fence and sit with your kitten in the garden. She chases moths through the dusk, her leaps wild and free. You watch her, heart heavy, and wonder how anyone could ever put her on trial, blame her for things she cannot understand. A few days later, another drama unfolds. A neighbour's rooster has begun crowing at midnight, waking the village, and according to some, bringing bad luck. The villagers gather, muttering about omens. The reeve is called once again. You watch as he listens, then rules. The rooster must be locked away at night, and if he crows again, he'll be cooked for Sunday supper. You marvel at how easily animals slip into the roles people assign them. Hero or villain, cherished friend or scapegoat, all depending on the day's troubles. It strikes you as deeply unfair, but you see how necessary these rituals are to the village's sense of order. When people are powerless against famine, disease or disaster, justice, however symbolic, becomes a kind of comfort. One evening you find the widow Martha and her dog in the meadow watching the sunset. She invites you to sit. "He's all I have," she repeats, stroking the dog's fur. "I don't know what I'd do without him. People say animals have no souls, but I know better." You nod, understanding more than ever before. You think of all the times your kitten has curled against you when you're sad, the way she looks into your eyes as if she knows all your secrets. As you walk home, you wonder if the villagers will ever see animals for what they really are, fellow travellers bearing the weight of human joys and sorrows. Maybe, you think, justice for animals is really just a mirror for how people treat one another. That night you dream of a world where animals stand in court, not as criminals but as equals, their stories heard and their lives valued. You wake with tears on your cheeks and your kitten purring at your side. The weeks pass and the memory of the trial fades, replaced by new worries. Bad weather, a poor harvest, a rumour of wolves in the woods. But the lesson lingers. You find yourself defending the animals more fiercely than before, reminding anyone who'll listen that they too belong to the village, that their fates are bound to your own. You help the children rescue a frog from the well, chase a lost goat back to his pen, share scraps with stray dogs when no one is watching. Each act feels like a small rebellion, a way of making amends for the injustices you've seen. Historians will one day debate the meaning of animal trials, the lines between justice and superstition, compassion and control. But, you know, deep in your bones, that every creature deserves a chance, a fair trial, a kind word, a place by the fire when the world grows cold. You hold your kitten close as night falls, whispering a promise. No one will ever put you on trial, not while I'm here. She purrs, curling into your chest, and for a moment, the world feels just a little bit kinder. Morning breaks with a silvery chill, and you rise to find the world dusted in frost, the grass shining, every cobweb jewelled in dew. Your breath plumes as you hurry through chores, your kitten riding your shoulder, batting playfully at your hair. Today you're to help your aunt gather kindling in the woods beyond the fields. As you walk, you pass the small churchyard where, tucked away among larger headstones, you notice something odd. A row of tiny handmade markers, wooden crosses, smooth stones, a cluster of daisy chains. You pause, curiosity tugging at your heart. Your aunt catches you staring. "Those are for the pets," she says quietly. "The ones loved enough to be remembered." You crouch, reading the simple carvings. Mousy, the good cat. Brindle, loyal friend. Robin, sweetest hen. Each name is a fragment of a life, each grave a sign that, here and there, an animal has crossed the line from mere tool to family. Some have trinkets beside them, a scrap of ribbon, a dog's worn collar, a smooth stone painted with a paw print. You feel a lump in your throat. Even in a world where animals are often seen as expendable, some are cherished to the end. As you continue into the woods, your aunt tells stories of pets who saved lives, of a rooster who woke the house just before a fire, a sheepdog who kept wolves at bay, a clever cat who brought her gifts of birds and once, astonishingly, a silver coin. "We bury them," she says, "so they'll be remembered. It's the least we can do." But you know, and she knows, that not every animal gets this kindness. For every grave there are a dozen lost pets, gone with barely a word or worse, condemned as threats or omens, destroyed not out of need but of fear or ritual. She tells you of darker days, the old festivals when the village would burn a black dog at the crossroads to ward off disease, or hang a rooster on the barn door to keep evil away. Her voice drops as she recalls these stories, and your kitten presses close to your chest, as if she too senses the weight of old sorrows. You gather wood in silence, pondering these contradictions. Back in the village, you hear snippets of conversation. A farmer grumbling that his best mauler died of poison, a child insisting that her bird is in heaven now. You see a boy burying a mouse behind the well, patting the earth flat with reverence. After lunch, you're sent to deliver bread to the miller's wife. Her home is at the far end of the village by the old Roman wall. When you arrive, you notice her garden, neat rows of marigolds and rosemary, and a tiny fenced corner where a cross stands. "That's for Patch," she explains. "Lost him last winter. He was just a chicken, but he used to follow me everywhere." She smiles, and you realise that for some people every animal matters, no matter how small. You help her sweep the hearth, and she tells you of a time, years ago, when a dog was buried under the great oak by the manor house, his grave marked with a stone and a handful of wildflowers. He saved the Lord's son from drowning, so they gave him a proper send-off. There was even a little procession. The priest said prayers, and everyone brought flowers. But not all stories end with gentle words. That same oak tree, she says, saw other rituals. A cat strung up for suspected sorcery, a goose drowned to drive away storms. Some folks get a grave, she says, and some get a warning to others. You walk home with your thoughts swirling. That evening you see a small knot of children digging behind the smithy, burying a dead toad with a ring of daisies. They take it seriously, whispering goodbyes, promising to visit. You wonder if they understand that their kindness is a form of rebellion, a refusal to let the world's hardness win. Supper is a quiet affair. Your father sharpens knives by the fire, your mother stitches a torn shirt, your kitten needs a soft blanket, eyes half closed. You ask your father if he's ever buried a pet. He nods, slow and thoughtful. Old Blue, the hound I grew up with, carried me out of the river when I was small. When he died, we laid him under the yew, marked it with stones. I visit sometimes when the world feels too hard. You find comfort in that. After the dishes are done, you wander outside with your kitten, visiting the little grave you made for the robin you found last spring. It's just a circle of stones, a feather and a violet. But it means something to you. A tiny act of resistance against the world's indifference. The next morning you hear shouting from the village green. Curious, you run out to see a group gathered around the smith who holds a dead hen aloft. "Fox got her," he announces. Some murmur sympathy, others mutter about bad omens. A few children beg to bury the hen, but the priest frowns. "Better to burn her," he says. "Don't let her spirit bring more misfortune." There's a debate. Should the animal be honoured or made a sacrifice? In the end, the hen is thrown onto the communal fire, her feathers curling in the smoke. The children cry, the grown-ups avert their eyes. The lesson's clear. Not every animal is allowed the dignity of memory. Sometimes fear or practicality wins out. That evening, the blacksmith's daughter finds you by the well, her dog at her side. "We buried my old cat last year," she says quietly. "Marked her grave with a shell I found at the river. Sometimes I go there when I miss her." Her voice falters and you squeeze her hand. You walk together to visit the little grave. It's nearly hidden by weeds, but the shell gleams in the moonlight. "She was just a cat," the girl says, "but she was my friend. I wish more people understood that." You nod, thinking of all the animals who never get a marker, whose lives are erased in a moment, whose memories are kept alive only in stories, if at all. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly mourned their pets, or if these burials were more about superstition, an attempt to keep spirits at bay, to protect the living from the dead. Some say every grave is a testament to love. Others see only fear, ritual, the desperate hope for protection in a dangerous world. But as you kneel beside the little grave, your kitten snuggled in your arms, you know the truth is both and neither. Love and fear are woven together here, as tangled as the wildflowers on a pet's resting place. Each grave is a prayer, a hope that the world will remember, that kindness matters, that life, no matter how brief, is worth honouring. You promise yourself that whatever else happens, you will always remember the animals who've shared your days. You will speak their names, mark their passing, hold their memories close. You will make room for love, even in a world that sometimes insists otherwise. That night you tuck your kitten close, her breath warm against your cheek. You dream of green fields and tiny graves, of laughter and tears, of a world where every creature is remembered, every life honoured in its own small way. And as dawn breaks, you wake with a gentle sense of hope, knowing that, even in a world of brutality and loss, memory and kindness endure, carved in wood, marked in stone, whispered on the wind. You wake before the roosters crow, the sky a mottled grey, your breath fogging as you tiptoe across the chilly floorboards. Your kitten is already up, tail high, tracing sunbeams as they creep between the shutters. In the great houses and painted halls of the nobility, dawn is a quieter affair. A maid lighting fires, a squire running errands, a lapdog nosing through silk curtains, seeking crumbs from last night's feast. You're sent to the manor this morning, a rare treat, or punishment depending on the task. Your aunt needs a message delivered, and you're chosen for your quick feet and curious eyes. You walk up the winding lane, shoes squelching in the mud, heart fluttering at the prospect of seeing a world so different from your own. At the gate, a pair of sleek greyhounds patrol the drive, eyes sharp, coats shining. The gatekeeper waves you through with a lazy salute. "Mind your manners," he calls, "and don't let the hounds nip your heels." You hurry on, the dogs trotting at your side until you reach the courtyard, where servants scurry in and out of the main house, arms loaded with linens and baskets. Inside the manor, the air is heavy with the scent of baking bread and rosewater. Tapestries line the walls, embroidered with scenes of hunts and battles. Everywhere, you see evidence of animals: dogs lounging by the fire, cats curled on velvet cushions, a pair of parrots squawking in a gilded cage, a monkey tethered by a golden chain to a carved post. You deliver your aunt's message to the housekeeper, who barely glances at you as she reads. "Wait there," she says, waving you to a bench. You sit quietly, your gaze drifting to a grand portrait over the hearth. It shows the Lord's family, himself, his wife, 3 children, and sitting solemn and dignified at his feet, a small white dog in a bejeweled collar. The artist has given the animal a soulful gaze, almost human in its devotion. It's clear the dog is part of the family, at least on canvas. As you wait, you notice other paintings: a hunting hound leaping at a stag, a lady cradling a spaniel in her lap, a boy laughing as a falcon lands on his gloved hand. Everywhere, animals are present, not just as background, but as characters in their own right, honoured and immortalised in oil and thread. A footman passes by, dusting frames. You ask about the dogs in the pictures. "All gone now," he says. "But they were famous in their day. Saved the Lord's life once. Chased off a bandit in the woods. This one," he taps the white dog's gilded collar, "used to have his own velvet cushion. Ate better than most servants." He laughs, but there's a touch of bitterness in it. You follow him down the hall, passing doors that open onto stables and kitchens. The walls are decorated with more images: cats tangled in embroidery floss, hounds sprawled beside noble beds, birds perched atop banners. The animals are everywhere in these grand homes. Their likenesses painted and stitched, their presence part of the house's identity. But the footman has more to say. "They love their pets here, no doubt," he says, lowering his voice. "But it's different than in the village. Dogs get fine collars, sure, and cats get the best scraps. But if one steps out of line, bites a guest, soils a rug, well, out they go. No hesitation. Loyalty matters, but only when it's convenient." You nod, remembering the stories you've heard, of noble pets dressed in pearls, of greyhounds buried with their masters, of favourite hunting hounds painted larger than the children in family portraits. But you also recall tales of animals cast out for a single mistake, sent away, sometimes destroyed, their only crime a poorly timed bark or a ruined tapestry. You ask the footman if any animals ever inherit anything like land or money. He snorts. "Not like a horse or a falcon. Horses sometimes get a mention in the will, if they're especially valuable or won a famous race. But dogs and cats, number. They get painted, they get poems. But when the master dies, they're at the mercy of whoever's left. I've seen it. A lapdog tossed out when the lady passed, a monkey sold at market, parrots given to distant cousins who don't care a whit for birds." He shakes his head, leading you into the kitchens. The cook's cat slinks around the table legs, tail in the air. "That one's smart," he says. "Stays out of trouble, keeps to herself, catches mice. She'll be fine, so long as she keeps earning her keep." You help with chores, sweeping floors and peeling vegetables, always watched by a parade of animals. You see a stable boy brushing a pony, whispering secrets into its ear. A falconer polishes bells and jesses, feeding his birds scraps of rabbit and duck. The monkey clings to its chain, watching everything with bright, restless eyes. You catch glimpses of noble children playing with kittens, a young lady feeding cream to a squirrel from a silver spoon, a page chasing after a runaway spaniel, laughing as the dog dodges every attempt at capture. For a moment it seems like paradise, a world where every animal is cherished, every need met, every whim indulged. But shadows linger at the edges. You notice a dog limping down the back steps, shooed away by a servant. "Bit the stable master last week," someone whispers. "The Lord said if he does it again, that's the end of him." You overhear a chambermaid say the falconer lost his best bird last winter, froze to death after an accident. "He wept for days," she says, "but there was nothing to be done. Now he keeps a new one, same name, different bird." At supper, you help set the table. The Lord and his family dine on roasted pheasant, sweetmeats and honey cakes. The lapdog sits at the lady's feet, snatching the choicest morsels from her hand. You watch as the servants eye the animal with a mix of envy and irritation. One jokes, "He'll inherit the silver before any of us." They all laugh, but it's the kind of laughter that doesn't reach the eyes. After the meal, you're allowed to wander the gallery. You study the portraits again, noticing the details. Each animal painted with care, their eyes shining, their fur brushed to perfection. But beneath the paint, you sense a truth. In this world, animals are part of the family, but only so long as they serve a purpose, bring joy or flatter their owners. As you prepare to leave, the housekeeper hands you a small parcel, leftover bread for your family. Be kind to your pets, she says softly. They remember. You thank her and step into the fading light, your kitten bounding ahead, eager for home. Walking back, you reflect on all you've seen. You realise that for the noble and the wealthy, pets are status, luxury, and sometimes even legend, but rarely, if ever, do they have true security. They are immortalised in portraits, doted on in life, but almost never mentioned in wills or granted a place beyond the grave. A favourite horse might win a spot in the stables, or even a special grave, but most animals vanish when their owners do, their stories kept alive only in oil and memory. Historians still argue over these contradictions. Were the nobles truly more affectionate or simply more public with their displays? Did their love for animals run deep? Or was it merely another form of wealth to show off? Was there real grief when a lapdog died, or only the inconvenience of finding a new one? The answer, as always, lies somewhere in the uneasy space between performance and sincerity. You arrive home as the last light fades. Your mother thanks you for the bread. Your father asks about the manor. You tell them what you saw, the portraits, the velvet beds, the stories of loyal hounds and pampered cats. Your mother smiles, but there's a hint of sadness in her eyes. At least our pets know their family, she says. They may not get paintings or pearls, but they know they're loved. You agree, settling beside the hearth, your kitten curled up on your lap. You stroke her fur, grateful for her warmth, her trust, her presence. In the flicker of the fire, you promise her, quietly, fiercely, that she'll always have a place in your home, even if no one ever paints her portrait or writes her into a will. You drift to sleep with her beside you, dreaming of galleries full of animals, each one remembered, each one loved, each one granted a place in the world, if only for a little while. You wake to the sound of crying, a soft, stifled sob that seeps through the thin cottage walls. At first, you're not sure if it's a dream, but then you hear it again, and your kitten's ears flick toward the door. You slip from bed, pad into the chilly kitchen and peek outside. The blacksmith's daughter sits on the stoop, her face hidden in her arms, her dog pressed close beside her, head resting on her knee. You join her in silence, settling beside the dog, who greets you with a slow wag of his tail. For a long moment, none of you speak. The dawn is still grey, the village barely waking, and for a little while it feels like you're the only three souls in the world. She finally looks up, cheeks streaked and red-eyed. "They're sending him away," she whispers. "They say he's a danger. He barked at the wrong time, and the reeve says it's too much trouble. My father's going to take him to the crossroads and leave him for the travellers." You reach out, stroking the dog's coarse fur. You want to say something, anything. But what comfort can you offer when you know, in your heart, that the world is often cruel to those who love too much? "He saved me from drowning in the forge," she says softly. "He's never hurt anyone, but now..." She trails off, her voice breaking. Your kitten slips onto your lap, purring as if she could heal a broken heart. The dog leans into your touch, eyes half closed. You wonder if he knows what's coming, if he understands that sometimes love isn't enough to keep you safe. You stay together until the sun climbs higher, the village stirring with the start of another day. When the blacksmith calls, his daughter stands, shoulders slumped. The dog follows her, tail low, glancing back at you with a gaze that seems to say, "Remember me." The rest of the day passes in a daze. You move through your chores, the world muted and grey. At market you overhear the news. "The smith's dog, gone for good," someone says. "A shame, but better safe than sorry." Others are less kind. "Should have drowned the beast," mutters an old woman. "Too much trouble, those dogs, they're not like ours." You want to scream, to argue, to make them see what they've done, but you say nothing, knowing the futility of pleading for a lost cause. Later you find the blacksmith's daughter by the riverbank skipping stones. She doesn't look at you, but you sit beside her anyway, letting the silence say what words cannot. She finally speaks. voice soft and distant. "He was my only real friend. People don't understand. Pets aren't just animals, they're family. When you lose them, it hurts, like losing a part of yourself." You nod, understanding all too well. You think of the kitten curled on your pillow, of every animal you've ever loved and lost. You remember the sting of saying goodbye, the ache that lingers long after the world expects you to move on. That evening, the village gathers for supper. The talk is subdued. A shadow hangs over the tables. You sense it everywhere. The absence of a familiar bark, the gap where the blacksmith's daughter used to laugh. Even the other children are quieter, their games gentler, as if mourning alongside her. You catch your father's eye across the fire. He nods, remembering his own losses. After the meal, he sits beside you, staring into the flames. "I was about your age when my first dog died," he says, voice rough. "We buried her under the willow and I cried for days. My father told me, better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. I didn't believe him then. Sometimes I still don't. But I know now, love changes you. It makes you braver, even if it hurts." You think about this as you crawl into bed, your kitten pressed against your chest. You whisper promises to her, that you'll keep her safe, that you'll never let her go. But you know, deep down, that life is uncertain and goodbyes come whether you're ready or not. The next morning, the blacksmith's daughter doesn't come to play. You visit her house, but her mother says she's gone to the fields. You wander through the village, noticing all the small losses: an empty kennel, a silent hen house, a rabbit hutch left open and bare. You pass the baker's house, where a child sits on the step clutching a limp bundle, a rabbit, gone cold. She cradles it, tears streaming down her face, while her mother kneels beside her, murmuring comfort. "He was my best friend," the girl sobs. "Why did he have to go?" Her mother strokes her hair, face sad but gentle. "We don't always get to choose," she says softly, "but we remember. That's what matters." You find yourself comforting the child, telling her stories of your own lost pets. She listens, eyes wide, and when you finish, she hugs you tightly. "Thank you," she whispers. "I feel a little better now." You realise as you walk home that grief is a thread running through the village, a quiet, constant presence, shaping every story, every memory. Everyone you know has lost someone, human or animal, and everyone carries scars. At the edge of the village, you find the blacksmith's daughter sitting by the old willow tree, her face streaked with tears. She looks up as you approach, and you sit beside her in silence. "I keep thinking he'll come back," she says at last, "that I'll wake up and hear him barking, see him running to greet me. But he's gone, and it's my fault. I should have done something. I should have fought harder." You reach for her hand, squeezing gently. "You loved him. That's what matters. He knew he was loved." She nods, tears flowing freely. "I just wish people understood. Pets aren't just for work or food or protection. They're for comfort, for laughter, for company when you're lonely. Why can't people see that?" You don't have an answer. All you can do is sit with her as the sun sets, casting long shadows across the field. Your kitten arrives, curling between you, purring in solidarity. Days pass. The pain doesn't fade, but it becomes easier to bear. You and the blacksmith's daughter talk about her dog, his tricks, his loyalty, the way he'd nudge her awake on cold mornings. You share memories of every pet you've ever loved, every bitter goodbye. The village moves on, but you and your friends don't forget. You make a pact to remember every lost pet, to honour their lives with stories and laughter, to promise each other that one day things will be different. Historians still argue about the place of pets in village life. Some claim they were just tools, valued only for their usefulness. Others see evidence of deep affection, of bonds that rival those between people. You know the truth is both simpler and more complicated. Love isn't measured by what the world expects, but by the hole left behind when it's gone. You mark the passing of your friends' pets with little ceremonies, flowers laid on a grave, stories told by candlelight, quiet moments spent remembering. The grown-ups shake their heads, but sometimes you catch them joining in, their own grief surfacing for a moment before they bury it again. On the day the blacksmith's daughter finally smiles, you know she's healing. You sit together by the river, watching the sun dance on the water, your kitten chasing butterflies along the bank. "He was a good dog," she says, voice steady. "I'll never forget him." You smile, knowing your promise to remember will last as long as you do. That night, you dream of a world where no child ever has to say goodbye to a beloved pet, where every animal is cherished and safe, where love is enough to keep them close forever. You wake with your kitten pressed to your heart, her purr a lullaby that soothes away the sorrow. You know the world isn't perfect, but you're grateful for every moment of joy, every heartbeat shared, every gentle goodbye. And you vow, again and again, to love fiercely, to remember always, to carry the stories of every lost pet in your heart. The day dawns golden, sunlight slanting through thin clouds, dappling the muddy lanes and stone walls of the village. Yet the mood is tense. There are whispers in the air, rumours swirling like leaves caught in a restless wind. The Reeve's sun rides through the square with news from the border. The great lords are mustering their banners, and war, it seems, is coming closer every day. You sense it in the way your father sharpens his tools, in the worried hush among the women at the well, in the children's play shifting from games of tag to make-believe battles in the field. Your kitten prowls along the sill, uneasy with the commotion, her tail twitching every time a horse clatters by. You join the rest of the village in the square, listening as the elders debate what this new threat will mean. Men argue about conscription, taxes, grain stores, but among the crowd you notice something else. A nobleman's retinue, bright in their coats of arms, leading a dog by a jewelled collar. The animal walks proudly, its head high, eyes sharp. At its side, the lord's youngest daughter clings to its neck, comforted by its presence in this sea of strangers. The village children gather around, their own pets trailing behind. Dogs, cats, a half-grown lamb, even a chicken. The air is filled with anxious chatter, but the noble's dog is a magnet for hope. "That's Victory," whispers a boy at your elbow. "He saved the lord in the last war." You watch the lord dismount, patting Victory's head as he does. The animal stands alert as soldiers unload the wagons. The story spreads quickly, how Victory once sniffed out an ambush, barking and snarling until the lord's men woke in time to defend themselves. The dog's loyalty is legendary, his name known in every village from here to the city walls. That afternoon you sneak away to the manor stables hoping for a closer look. You find Victory sprawled in the shade, the lord's daughter sitting beside him, weaving a crown of wildflowers for his brow. She looks up, smiles and beckons you over. "Want to pet him?" she asks. You nod, and the dog lifts his head, sniffing your hand before allowing you to stroke his ears. His fur is warm and coarse, his eyes steady and kind. The girl tells you stories, how Victory once chased off a pack of wolves, how he sleeps by her bed, how he was nearly lost when the enemy raided the manor. But her voice grows softer as she confides. "Father says if war comes, Victory must go with the soldiers. I'm scared he won't come back." You listen, your heart heavy with empathy. You know what it's like to love an animal so deeply, to fear for its safety, to hope for a future that feels increasingly uncertain. That night the village is abuzz with tales of heroic animals, dogs who saved their masters in battle, horses who carried wounded soldiers home, even a cat who alerted a household to a fire set by raiders. Around the hearth, your father tells how, in his youth, he saw a dog lead a lost regiment to safety through a fog-shrouded forest. Sometimes, he says, bravery doesn't wear armour or swing a sword. The war draws closer. Men gather in the square, pledging loyalty or pleading to be left with their families. The lord's retinue camps outside the manor, banners fluttering in the breeze. Victory stays close to his master, now a symbol of hope and courage for everyone. Children press flowers into his collar. Grown men pat his side, whispering prayers for protection. One morning, word comes, a band of enemy scouts spotted nearby. The Lord and his men ready their weapons, Victory at the forefront bristling with anticipation. The villagers gather at the edge of the green, watching as the soldiers ride out, Victory leading the way. You and the Lord's daughter stand together holding hands. She squeezes your palm tightly, tears bright in her eyes. "He'll come back," she whispers, as if saying it aloud will make it true. Days pass in anxious waiting. The village is quiet, the air tense. Messengers come and go, but there is no word of Victory or the soldiers. You spend long hours with your kitten, whispering stories of brave dogs and clever cats, hoping to soothe your own fears. At last the soldiers return, dirty, tired, some wounded, but alive. Victory limps at the head of the column, his fur singed, a fresh scar on his flank, but his eyes shining with pride. The villagers cheer. The Lord's daughter rushes forward, flinging her arms around his neck. Even the stern Lord weeps as he kneels to embrace his loyal companion. The story spreads faster than the wind. How Victory once again saved the day, barking a warning just as the enemy crept through the underbrush. How he led the charge, snapping at heels, rallying the men when hope was nearly lost. His courage is toasted in every cottage, his name sung by children and grown-ups alike. That night the manor throws a feast in Victory's honour. The Lord himself carves a special portion of meat, placing it in a silver dish for his hound. The villagers gather, telling and retelling the tale, each time a little more dramatic, a little more magical. For a brief moment, fear and hardship fade, replaced by pride and gratitude. You and the Lord's daughter slip away from the noise, sitting in the quiet garden as Victory rests at your feet. She strokes his fur, her tears now ones of relief and joy. "He's a hero," she says, "but he's still just a dog. He gets scared, he gets hungry, he gets tired. I wish people remembered that." You nod, realizing that for all the legends and stories, animals like Victory are still vulnerable, subject to hunger, pain, and the whims of fate. In the days that follow, Victory is treated with reverence, but you notice the strain on him, his limp, the way he startles at sudden noises, the long sleeps he takes in the shade. You overhear the stable boys talk of other war dogs, some who never returned, others who came back changed, haunted by sights and sounds their human companions can only guess at. Historians still debate how many times animals changed the course of battle, whether a hound's bark truly saved a lord, whether a horse's charge turned the tide, whether cats in the trenches could sense approaching danger. Some argue the stories are exaggerated, tales told to give meaning to chaos. Others point to records, medals, even burials with honours for particularly heroic pets. For you, the truth is simpler and deeper. Animals are caught up in human struggles, dragged into war, celebrated when things go well, mourned when they're lost. Their loyalty is both a blessing and a burden, tying them to fates they never chose. The war lingers, moving on to other places, other villages. The Lord's retinue departs, Victory with them, head high once more. The manor feels emptier without their presence. The Lord's daughter writes you a letter. Victory is well, she says, loved and honoured wherever he goes. But she misses him, and sometimes she wishes he could just be her companion again, not a hero for the world. Back in your own home, you hold your kitten close, stroking her soft fur, grateful for her safety, her quiet presence. You think of all the animals who have changed history, whether their stories are remembered or forgotten, and you whisper a thank you for every one of them. Life in the village settles back into routine. The stories of Victory and other animals become part of local legend, told and retold around the fire, growing with each telling. But for those who loved them, the memory remains sharper. The feel of fur under their fingers, the sound of paws on earth, the comfort of a living companion in a world too often torn by fear and uncertainty. One day the blacksmith's daughter finds you by the river, her new dog, a puppy, clumsy and joyful, racing circles around her feet. She smiles, the shadow of old grief easing a little. "He'll never be Victory," she says, "but he's mine, that's enough." You sit together in the sunlight, your kitten dozing on your lap, the puppy nipping at your toes, and you realise that, for all the hardship and loss, life goes on. Love endures, stories continue, you promise silently to remember every animal who's touched your life, not just the heroes whose names are sung, but the quiet companions whose loyalty and love shaped your days in ways history will never record. Morning dew shimmers on the grass as you make your way through the village, your kitten cradled in the crook of your arm. The air is rich with the earthy scent of wet soil and herbs, sharpened by a chill that hints at coming winter. You're off to see old Marjorie, the healer, whose cottage sits at the edge of the wood, tangled in a riot of wildflowers and kitchen herbs. People say Marjorie knows the secrets of roots and leaves, how to draw fever from a child's brow, how to cure a cough with a syrup of honey and thyme. But you know her best as the one who always slips you a treat for your kitten, the one who keeps a fox cub in a basket by the hearth, and a lame goose who follows her like a shadow. Today, though, your errand is serious. The blacksmith's daughter has fallen ill, racked with fever that nothing seems to touch. Her mother has sent you for help. Marjorie opens the door before you can knock, ushering you inside with a wave of her gnarled hand. The air's thick with steam and the tang of rosemary, and the fox cub yawns lazily from his basket as you enter. "She's burning up?" Marjorie asks, squinting at you as she grinds something with a mortar and pestle. You nod, explaining what you've seen, the glassy eyes, the shaking hands, the chills. Marjorie hums, lost in thought, then sends you to the shelves for willow bark and elderberry. As she brews her medicines, you watch the animals. A cat sprawled on the windowsill, 2 mice curled up in a clay jar, a wounded magpie hopping around a bowl of oats. But the magic that Marjorie wields isn't just in her herbs, it's in her understanding of the animal world. She talks to the fox as if he's an old friend, lets the magpie peck crumbs from her hand, scolds the cat when he chases the mice. You wonder how she learned these secrets, if they were passed down from her mother, or simply gathered from years of watching and listening. As the medicine simmers, Marjorie beckons you closer. "Sometimes," she says, "it's not just herbs that heal." She glances at your kitten. "Sometimes it's an animal's warmth, its presence. People have always believed a dog can draw out sickness by lying at the feet of the feverish, by taking the illness onto themselves. Same with cats sometimes. Old stories say their purr can mend bones, calm the heart. You think of the nights you've fallen asleep with your kitten pressed to your chest, her body a steady comfort when your worries kept you awake. You wonder if Marjorie is right, if animals can carry away our pains, if their love is a kind of healing all its own. But not all stories are gentle. As you stir the pot, Marjorie tells you about a charm she once saw, a bone from a beloved dog, ground to powder and stirred into a broth, meant to ward off evil. Another time, a grieving mother buried her child's cat at a crossroads, hoping its spirit would guide the lost soul safely on. "We do strange things when we're afraid," Marjorie sighs. "Sometimes love and desperation are the same." You shiver, recalling stories whispered by the fire, of bones unearthed, curses broken, cats and dogs sacrificed to protect her home. Even Marjorie admits she doesn't always know where medicine ends and magic begins. Later you help her deliver the potion to the blacksmith's cottage. The girl lies pale and silent, her dog curled at her feet, refusing to move. Marjorie shoos no one away. Let him stay. He's guarding her spirit. She drips the bitter medicine onto the girl's tongue, then sits by the fire watching the dog as much as the patient. The dog, sensing the worry in the room, snuggles closer, offering warmth and comfort. The girl's breathing slows, her hands unclench. Marjorie nods, as if this is just as she expected. Over the next days, the blacksmith's daughter improves. Each morning you visit, her dog is there, steadfast as a sentry. When she finally wakes fully, the first thing she does is bury her face in his neck, whispering thanks. Marjorie smiles, pressing a hand to your shoulder. Sometimes it's not the medicine at all. But you also see the other side of village belief, those who turn to darker remedies when hope is gone. You hear of a farmer, desperate to save his crop, burying a rooster's foot under his doorstep. Another mother grinds a cat's whisker into tea to ward off nightmares. In times of plague, people have been known to wall up a dog's skull above a door, hoping it will keep death at bay. The world is full of these contradictions, of pets loved as family but also used as tools, as sacrifices, as shields against fear. Historians still debate how much truth lies in the stories of magical pets and healing charms. Some see only superstition, a reflection of a world that understood so little, that clung to any promise of hope. Others point to the bond between human and animal as the real miracle, the true source of comfort and healing, even if the methods seem strange to modern eyes. You walk home, your kitten darting at your heels. You remember Marjorie's words, the warmth of the dog curled beside the sick girl, the comfort in a purring cat or a loyal friend. You wonder if these stories will last, if, one day, people will still believe that animals can heal, protect, or even carry away the bad luck that clings like dust in the corners of every home. That evening, your father tells you a story from his boyhood, a time when a dog was blamed for a run of bad luck, its bones dug up and burned in the hope of changing the family's fortune. It never made sense, he says, but when you're desperate, you'll try anything. He shakes his head, sorrowful, and you promise yourself that you'll never let fear turn you against those you love. You visit Marjorie again and again, helping her tend to her animals, learning the language of fur and feather, of trust and patience. You watch as she helps a neighbour's cow through a difficult birth, as she stitches the wing of a wounded bat, as she murmurs blessings over a dead dog, sending him on his way with gentle words and a handful of wildflowers. Each time you see how much the animals mean to those around you, not just as helpers or protectors, but as living, feeling beings whose presence changes everything. You remember every story you've heard, of cats curled by the sickbed, of dogs leading lost travellers home, of bones ground to powder, of fur buried for luck. In the village, people continue to walk the line between love and superstition. Some keep their pets close, believing their purrs or barks are protection enough. Others slip into old habits, reaching for charms and remedies, hoping to outwit fate. You understand both impulses, the need to hold on, and the urge to try anything when you're afraid. Historians will puzzle over these rituals for centuries, debating whether they are signs of progress or relics of ignorance. You know, in your heart, that the truth is both more simple and more complex. Animals are our companions through every trial, and sometimes the only thing that truly heals is knowing you're not alone. One evening, as you watch your kitten curl on the hearth, you think of all the animals who have carried burdens for the people who loved them, absorbing sorrow, easing pain, bringing hope where there was none. You whisper a thank you, pressing your cheek to her warm fur, and you promise yourself, quietly and fiercely, that you will always honour the gifts these companions give, whether or not their magic can be measured, whether or not the world believes. The year turns slowly, the first sharp winds of winter rattling loose the last gold leaves, driving villagers and their animals indoors. Smoke drifts from every chimney, and the night falls early, sending everyone scurrying for warmth. In your cottage, the glow of the hearth spills across the floor, where your kitten sprawls, her belly exposed to the heat, a picture of careless contentment. Yet even now, when the world should be settling into its slowest, sleepiest rhythms, there is restlessness everywhere you look. The village seems changed, wearier but also more tightly knit, as if every loss and every story shared over the past seasons has bound people together. The blacksmith's daughter is often at your door, her new dog, smaller and shyer than the last, keeping careful pace at her heel. You find yourself inviting neighbours in more often, the baker's youngest, with her mouse-quiet footsteps, old Marjorie hunched under her shawl, a magpie peering from her pocket, the Reeve's sullen son, who softens only when your kitten curls in his lap. One evening, a fierce wind drives the whole crowd into your kitchen, bringing tales and troubles alike. Someone brings a pot of stew, another a basket of apples, and before you know it, You're all huddled together on benches on the floor, swapping stories while the storm howls outside. It is then that the talk turns, naturally inevitably, to the animals of the village, past and present. Every child in the room boasts of a beloved pet. The bravest goose, the cleverest hound, the cat who could climb higher than the church spire. The grown-ups too are drawn in, telling tales of dogs who guarded them through sickness, horses who carried them to safety, cats who purred them back from the edge of grief. There's laughter and some tears. Every animal, it seems, has a legend attached. The baker's youngest tells a story of her grandmother's cow, Blossom, who refused to leave her side during a fever, standing sentry through the night until the fever broke. The blacksmith's daughter chimes in about the old dog who could fetch firewood, and how she misses him most when the wind is sharp and the nights long. As the stories spin out, Marjorie the healer produces a battered old book, a bestiary with pages thick as bark and drawings that are by turns beautiful and odd. She invites everyone to add a line about their own animals, a brief memory, a bit of advice, a warning, or a wish. Some hesitate, but the mood is contagious. Soon the bestiary is filled with the scrawled, crooked lines of every age. Rufus, best at chasing foxes, worst at sharing bread. Pip the parrot lived so long he outlasted 3 owners in a thunderstorm. Milo, the sheepdog, saved us from the great flood, never got enough thanks. Lily, my first cat, kept my secrets and my pillow warm. Your own entry is simple. To every animal I've loved, thank you for the warmth in the cold and the laughter in the quiet. The bestiary is passed hand to hand, growing heavier with each story. For a while, there's a sense that you are building something, a record not just of animals, but of the ways people have found comfort, protection, and even a kind of wisdom in their company. The oldest villagers contribute memories of pets lost to time, their words soft and reverent. Children add drawings, a rooster with a lopsided crown, a fat marmalade cat, a horse that looks suspiciously like a dragon. After the stew is eaten and the fire burned low, the company lingers, reluctant to part. Marjorie closes the bestiary, promising to keep it safe, to add to it whenever new stories come. This, she says, is our village's other history, the one you won't find in the Lord's records or the priest's sermons. This is how we remember. The gathering becomes a tradition. Each week through the deepening winter, families take turns hosting, inviting friends and neighbours to share warmth and tales. The bestiary grows, its pages worn and stained, its stories blending fact and fable. There are solemn stories of animals lost to plague or hunger, and lighter ones of mischief, triumph, and the everyday comfort of a pet's silent company. You notice too how the animals themselves seem to sense the change. The blacksmith's new dog is slower to flinch, more eager to join games. Marjorie's fox cub grows bold enough to sneak bites from the stew pot. Even your kitten, once shy, now wanders from lap to lap collecting strokes and crumbs. Yet beneath the laughter, there is a shared understanding of the precariousness of it all. You talk in low voices about the dogs lost to the last fever, the horses that slipped on icy roads, the cat who vanished on a stormy night and never returned. The bestiary records these losses too. Each memory is a thread in a tapestry, reminding everyone that love, even when brief, leaves marks that outlast the coldest winter. On a rare clear morning you walk to the churchyard, your kitten in tow. The graves of past pets are rimmed with frost. You kneel, tracing the names with a mittened hand, whispering their stories into the crisp air. You remember Marjorie's words, "We remember even when it hurts." That's what makes us more than what the world expects. Later you pass the old manor, now quiet after the lords have gone to the city for the season. The portraits of hunting dogs, lap cats and noble horses stare out from the windows. You wonder if anyone remembers the names of those animals now, if their legends have faded, or if somewhere in the manor another bestiary is being filled, another child dreaming up stories to keep the memory alive. That night the gathering is at your home again. The storm rattles the shutters, but inside the circle of warmth and story grows. Someone begins a new tradition, reading aloud from the bestiary, One memory for each animal lost, one wish for every pet still living. Your heart aches, but it also feels full in a way you didn't know was possible. As the evening winds down, Marjorie declares, "Let this be our promise, to remember every animal who's loved us, fed us, kept us safe or made us laugh. Let's carry their stories through every season so that no one, beast or person, ever truly vanishes." Historians will one day marvel at how a village like yours survived so much loss, so much uncertainty. Some will say it was faith or cleverness, hard work or luck. But you know another truth. It was also the quiet bonds of love, the comfort of animals who asked for nothing more than a warm hearth and a gentle hand, the stories told and retold until even the saddest ones shimmered with hope. You tuck your kitten in as the last embers fade, whispering goodnight to every pet you have known, every memory you have inherited. Tomorrow, the winter will be a little brighter, the world a little kinder, because you have chosen, again and again, to remember. You rise on a morning cold and clean, the world washed by a night of wind and starlight. Your kitten purrs awake at your side, stretching so extravagantly that she falls off the bed and lands in a heap of blankets. You laugh softly, grateful in this moment for the quiet, for the small warm body that reminds you not everything is heavy. The frost is thick on the windows. Your breath plumes in the air as you pull on boots and cloak. Winter's edge has arrived, and with it the end of another long, strange year. The village is hushed, the lanes white and brittle. Smoke curls from every chimney. You follow the familiar path to the well, your kitten padding along, every step leaving a perfect print. Even in winter, life moves. The hens huddle in their coop, dogs bark from behind doors, a few horses stamp and snort, hungry for hay. People nod to you, their arms full of wood or water, everyone bundled and busy, but you can sense their gentleness, a new patience forged by shared hardship, and the unspoken promise to hold their loved ones close, be they human or beast. This is the season when stories matter most, when the old tales are pulled from memory and recited like charms against the dark. By now, the bestiary Marjorie began is bursting with notes and drawings, a patchwork record of love and loss. In every home, children curl up with cats or dogs, chickens are brought inside for warmth, and even the grown-ups are seen, now and then, stroking a rabbit's ear or whispering to an old sway-backed horse. This year you feel the difference, the way the village has changed. Where before, suspicion and fear often cast shadows over every animal's fate, now there is a stubborn tenderness. You remember how quickly things can turn, how a dog might be blamed for bad luck, a cat for sickness, a lamb for famine. Yet now, after so many losses and so many shared evenings, people are gentler with each other and with their animals. The blacksmith's daughter walks by, her new dog bounding at her side. She waves, smiling. There is sadness in her eyes, but also strength. You know she'll never forget her old companion, and neither will you. Sometimes you see her by the willow tree, laying a sprig of rosemary at the spot where the dog she loved once slept. Today is a special day, a festival meant to chase away the deepest dark and welcome the first hints of returning light. The villagers gather in the square, each bringing a scrap of food, a ribbon, a memory to share. The bestiary is placed at the centre of the green, weighted open by a loaf of bread and a sprig of holly. Everyone is invited to add something, just a word, a drawing, a wish for the coming year. You listen as one by one people step forward. The baker's daughter ties a red ribbon around the neck of her piglet. The reeve's son reads out a poem for the hen that once saved his family from hunger. Marjorie, her voice thin but steady, blesses every pet in the square, each dog, cat, bird, and even the odd goat or ferret. She thanks them for their patience, for their protection, for the laughter and warmth they bring in the coldest months. As the celebration unfolds, you notice the change, not just in the number of pets, for there are more now than in any year you remember, but in how openly everyone shows their affection. There are no harsh words about bad omens, no frightened glances when a black cat strolls through the crowd. Even the old stories are retold with new meaning. Instead of warning against witches' familiars or evil eyes, people now speak of faithful friends, of brave companions, of animals who brought luck, not disaster. A fire is built at the centre of the square, and as dusk falls, the villagers gather in a circle. You stand with your friends, your kitten tucked into your cloak, listening as the bestiary is read aloud. A litany of memories, hopes, and gratitude. Each entry is a thread, weaving together the lives of people and pets, sorrow and joy, fear and forgiveness. The blacksmith's daughter reads a wish for her new dog. May you always find your way home, may you always be loved. You add your own for your kitten. May your days be full of warmth, your nights full of purrs, your life always safe beside mine. As the fire crackles, the villagers begin to sing, a song for the living and the lost, for every animal that ever shared a meal, a secret, a patch of warmth in the long dark. The music is soft, carrying into the night, winding through the village lanes and into the forest, where foxes and deer and wild cats listen from the shadows. You look around and realize for the first time that the fear which once haunted every corner of the village has faded. In its place is something gentler, not certainty, but acceptance, a recognition that all lives are fleeting, that every bond is precious, and that kindness above all is what we owe each other. As the night deepens, you walk home through the snow, your kitten cradled against your heart. She nuzzles your chin, purring so loudly you can feel it in your bones. You step inside, feed her by the hearth, and curl up together in a nest of blankets, the world outside silent and serene. You think of the year behind you, all its pain, its small joys, its bewildering turns. You think of every pet you have loved, every story you have heard, every goodbye that hurt, and every greeting that mended something inside you. You know now that every animal's fate is tied to your own, that their lives are shaped by your choices, by your courage, your compassion, your willingness to remember. Historians will wonder, centuries from now, how a village could shift from superstition to sympathy, from brutality to gentleness. They'll sift through stories, try to explain it away with wars or weather or changes in faith, but you'll know the truth, that it was 100 small decisions, 1,000 soft hands, a chorus of laughter and tears and promises kept around the hearth. You tuck your kitten close, and with the fire burning low you whisper, "Thank you for staying. Thank you for trusting me." She needs your chest, her eyes closing, her purrs a lullaby. Tomorrow will bring more stories, more worries, more change. But tonight there is only this, the warmth of a small animal, the soft hush of winter, and the certainty that love, however strange, however fragile, endures. Now the fire's nearly out, the coals glimmering red, and you feel the heaviness of sleep tugging at your limbs. The world outside is hushed, only the sigh of the wind and the gentle tick of embers breaking the silence. Your kitten curls close, a quiet promise against the dark, her breath warm on your wrist. You let yourself drift, your mind softening at the edges. The stories of this year swirl and settle. The laughter of children, the loyal bark of dogs, the purrs and soft steps of cats on the hearth, the fierce love that endured loss and fear. Every animal, every moment is part of you now, a tapestry of memory woven from kindness and hope. You know, as your eyelids flutter, that nothing lasts forever, not winter, not worry, not even sorrow. What endures is this, the warmth of another living soul beside you, the memory of every gentle act, the quiet courage of loving and losing again and again. If you're still awake, let your shoulders relax, let your breath slow. Let every story, happy or sad, fade into the gentle hush of this night. You're not alone. Somewhere a kitten purrs, a dog dreams, a friend remembers you in the dark. So rest now. Let the quiet carry you. Tomorrow, and every day after, the world will keep turning and you'll wake to new stories. Old wounds healed by love, old fears softened by kindness, every ending the seed of a new beginning. Sweet dreams.